Councillor Hopkins. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Johnston. Apologies, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kitt. Councillor Leddy. Councillor Maguire. Councillor McCamley. Councillor McDonough. Councillor Mulligan. Councillor Mulville. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Newman. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor O'Leary.
Here.
Councillor Onyemura. Councillor Quinlan. Councillor Quinn. Apologies, Councillor Redwood. Councillor Ryan. Councillor Sheehan. Councillor Shovlin. Councillor Smith. Apologies, Councillor Tormley. Councillor Troy. Councillor Walsh.
Okay, so I've 4 apologies here. Councillor Tanya Doyle, Councillor DJ Kelly, Councillor Helen Redwood and Councillor Evie Tormey not attending at the minute, and an apology sent. Let me see. Right, go into the usual note and then I'll go on to other business. So, County Council meeting. All mobile phones should be on silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being webcast. All members, please remember to switch off your microphone when you have finished speaking. All members are reminded that the chamber is a non-smoking vaping area. Standing orders will apply to all aspects of the meeting. Councillors are reminded of the provisions Standing Order number 92 that all members are bound to act in accordance with the ethics framework, code of conduct for local authority members to cooperate with the orderly conduct of meetings and the direction of the Mayor and in a manner that is respectful of colleagues. Members have been circulated with the agenda for today's meeting, and any member forming the view that they have a conflict of interest in the matters that are subject to today's agenda should now disclose same. Councillors are also reminded of the provision Standing Order 93 that members must bear in mind that discussions at council meetings are not privileged. No member may make false statements, impute proper motives, or use offensive or unbecoming words in reference to any member of the council, employee of the council, or any other person. Any member having made such statements or used such objectionable words and not explaining or retracting same or offering apologies for the use thereof when requested by the Mayor to do so shall be called upon by the Mayor to withdraw from the meeting. Members making any such statements or comments may find themselves personally liable. So, before I start the agenda, I would like to welcome Roisin Burke, who's the Director of Services, Planning and Development, and it's our first time in the meeting. Okay, so we'll go straight into the agenda now. And item 1 is confirmation and reaffirmation of minutes of the council meeting held on the 8th of December 2025, proposed by J.K. Onamwera and seconded by Kieran Dennison. And then we go into number 2, and there's 4 here. These are 4 vacancies, and the first one up is number 2A, appointment of 1 member to the Climate Action Biodiversity Environment Strategic Policy Committee. Do we have any proposals? Any proposals from the floor? If not, I'm going to defer it. Okay, we'll defer. And going on to number 2B, appointment of 1 member to the Eastern Midland Regional Assembly, known as EMRA. Any proposals? Kieran, Councillor Dennison proposed. Seconded by Councillor Darrell Butler. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Number 2C, appointment of 1 member to the Regional Health Forum. Any proposals? Proposed. Councillor Cockery. Seconded by Kieran Dennison. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And then the last one is appointment of 1 member to the Local Development Committee, known as LCDC, and this has to be from the Holt Malahide ward. Are there any proposals? And again, if there's no proposals, I'll defer. No one stepping forward. Okay, I'm going to defer that one. So D is deferred. So questions 3 to 12. 3 to 12. Propose, is it? Yeah. I'll propose, and Councillor Walsh seconded. And then we go on to what we next. Let me see. Sorry. Where am I now? Right, number 13, report on committees. So, we've A, annual chairperson's reports of strategic policy committee meetings held in 2025. So, am I going to for that? So I'll propose if someone seconds. Seconded by Kieran Dennison, and then B, report of organisation, procedures and finance committee, which is held on Monday, the 8th of December. I propose if someone will second. Seconded by Councillor Owen O'Brien. And C, report of corporate policy group CPG meeting, which is held on Wednesday, 7th of January 2026. I propose. Seconded by Councillor Owen O'Brien. Financial matters, don't think we've any reports. No. And then 15, disposal of properties. So who's taking that? We've notice of proposed lease of land, Parkvale, Baldoyle, 13 to Baldoyle Boxing Club, Parkvale, Baldoyle, Dublin 13. Who's taking? John. Okay, say that again. Who? Seconded by Brian McDonough and proposed by David Healy. And agreed. Agreed. Okay, great. Number 16, declaration of roads. I don't think we've any. No. 17, we're on to 17 now. So the draft Fingal Council Parking Control Bylaws 2026, Mary T. Daly, I think.
Thanks very much, Mayor. Good evening, members, and Happy New Year to you all. The Fingal Parking Control Bylaws 2026, so they're here for adoption by the full Council. The legislative background, there's legislation under the 1961 Act with regards to the car parks and under the 1994 Act with regards to parking on the public roads. So provision is made for the regulation of car parks in the 1961 Act and to specify parking places in which vehicles may be parked either indefinitely or for any period not exceeding a specified period is provided for in the Roads Traffic Act 1994. And the adoption of these bylaws is a reserved function of the Council. So the public consultation, we've been doing extensive public consultation with yourselves, also with the public in 2025. So we first held a briefing with the SPC on the 4th of March 25. We had 2 online meetings with the elected members of Fingal in March and May. We put an advertisement in the 2 local papers and a copy of the bylaws were published on Fingal consultation portal from the 17th of July to the 28th of August. Copies of the draft bylaws were made available for inspection in council offices, and it was advertised across council's social media platforms. So a report on the consultation went to each of the area committees in Q4 2025, and it was recommended by the SPC to the CPG at its meeting on the 9th of December and recommended by the CPG to this full council meeting today. So the proposed amendments as per the draft bylaws which went out on public display. So on-street parking, 50 cents and 1.20 going to €1. That's the minimum that you have to pay, or €1.70 per hour. In the on-street long stay, €2 per day. That is increasing to €5 per day. So if you're parking on the street, if you're parking for 10-15 minutes, that charge is going from 50 to €1. If you're staying for more than an hour, then it'll be $1.70 for the full hour. Car parking off-street charges, 50 cent for part of the hour, or €3 a day. That's going €1 per hour and €5 per day. The residential parking permits, the permits are going for €20 for 1 year, and it was 30 for 2 years. That's going to 30 for 1 year and 50 for 2 years. The replacement of the permit, there's no charge, there's no change. No change. The same with the change of vehicle, change of address, there's no change to that. It stays at €10. The visitor disc, $150, and there's no change on that. Commercial permit for businesses going from €600 to €700, And the club, car club permit 500, and there's no change on that. We also went out with the introduction of proposing to introduce pay and display at the coastal car parks, and we went out with the first hour free and a charge thereafter. So that's what went out on public display. We also proposed amendments with regards to EV charging spaces, the statutory time plate 3-hour max stay, and provision for enforcement. We had to update the bylaw text with reference to the display of permits because we now have the virtual permit system, it's online. Key Street car park south of the Bracken River, remove and replace with Mill Street car park due to the Arbal Briggan, that car park is closed. Bridgefield car park, 1 hour free parking, we're changing that to 2 hours free parking, and mobility hub definition. We also had to provide for exemptions with regards to local authority and on-post vehicles during normal course of duties, and that's provided for within a statutory instrument. So we went out, the submissions that were received following the public consultation, we received a total of 553 submissions. 5 submissions received were in favour of the proposed amendment to the bylaws. 2 submissions related to the proposed increase in on-street parking charges. We had 1 submission related to the proposed increase in commercial permits, a submission on restrictions on residential permits for purpose-built apartments. There was 1 submission on that. 15 submissions were received related to the change in fee structure for Mill Street car park, including max stay, 3-hour stay. So they wanted 3 hours free stay at Mill Street. So of the 553, 529 submissions related to the introduction of parking charges at coastal car parks. So submissions in favour, as I said, there was 5 submissions in favour of the proposed amendments, as you can see there. Public consultation then, submissions related to proposed increase in on-street parking charges and the commercial permits. So Fingal County Council proposed to increase the on-street parking charges following a comparative assessment carried out against the other Dublin local authorities and also privately owned parking facilities throughout the county. So if you look at Dublin City Council in Zone 1 and Zone 2, it's €4 per hour or $3.50 per hour. We're still substantially lower than that. In Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council, it's the same, $1.70 per hour, which is what we're proposing to go to. But also, residence permits in Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council, it's €75. For 2 years, we have increased the cost, but it's at 50. So the estimated increase in the income for parking charges, it did form part of the budget 2026, as I outlined at the budget meeting, to provide for the increased operational expenditure. Submissions were received one submission was received related to residential permits for purpose-built apartment blocks. These are people living in apartment blocks looking for a residence permit to park on the public road. And Part 3 of the parking bylaws, we don't propose to change what we had in the previous bylaws on that. Owing to the higher density and volume of units contained in purpose-built apartment blocks, it would not be feasible to facilitate residence permits for all occupiers. Purpose-built apartment blocks have allocated parking per apartment as per the Planning Permission. This negates the requirement for on-street residence permits. At the time of purchase or lease, occupiers know if they have a parking space with the unit and have the option to purchase a parking space. Some purpose-built apartment blocks also have additional parking which can be booked for visitors. So providing additional resident parking for occupiers of apartment blocks would not be in line with the Fingal Climate Action Plan or the Development Plan. We're trying to promote a transition towards more sustainable forms of transport, public transport, cycling and walking. All other local authorities apply the same conditions, so we're no different to any of the other Dublins. And we do not propose to amend this previously adopted section of the parking control bylaws. So we're not proposing any change here, and we're not proposing to provide residence permits for residents living in apartment blocks. As I say, there was just 1 submission of the 554 was in relation to that. Public consultation, then there was a number of submissions with regards to Mill Street car park. So the 67 they wanted it to be free for Mill Street people who are using the train. So the 67 spaces available at the town centre car park in Mill Street, Key Street, primary function is to serve the users of the business, leisure and amenities in the town. And we had a number of submissions from businesses and from chambers with regards to ensuring that there is turnover in car parks to facilitate more people visiting and shopping within the town. So we do want to continue to support that. Long stay car park users, including rail commuters, can avail. There is free car parking spaces available at Bath Road Overflow and Braemore Castle, and there's additional free parking there, and that's also available for people that are using the beach as well. Parking to a maximum of 3-hour limits is available for beach users as well, as I said. Members of the public wishing to partake in beach activities over the maximum stay can consider the long-term free parking. So if they park in Mill Car Park, they will have to pay after 2 hours, but they can only stay for 3 hours. But as I said, there is free parking and ample free parking available in Balbriggan at Bath Road and Braemore Castle. So the coastal car parks, the majority of the submissions we received were with regards to our proposal to introduce the first hour free at the car parks at the beaches, and then a €5 charge for the day. So Donabate 172, Lough Shinny, the highest number were Portrane, Tower Bay and all other beach locations. So that's the breakdown of it. So there was quite a substantial number of submissions that were received against the introduction of the parking. So on the basis that car parks should remain free of charge, there was 102 submissions on that, 83 submissions with regards to the lack of public transport and walking, cycling facilities, 50 submissions on additional financial burden, mental and physical health benefits should remain free of charge, the car parks. Charges will impact on local residents, will impact on elderly or mobility impaired persons, discourage the public from using the beach, improvements needed to facilitate, and impact on tourism and local businesses and commuter parking. So of the 554, 525 were in regard to the beach car parks. So we did listen to that and we done an assessment. So we done a review and consideration of all the submissions related to the introduction of the car parking charges. And we assessed them on the basis of, well, is there good access to public transport at that particular location? Like if you look at the likes of Donabate Beach, you'd have to say there isn't possibly good access to public transport, and at a number of others. Turnaround of parking bays for local businesses at car parks, and that's important. The businesses want turnaround, particularly the car parks that are near to the centre of the towns, so that they get a better footfall. Traffic management issues during busy periods and summer months, and we certainly do have traffic management issues if we have very fine weather, particularly in the Holt Malahide area with Portmarnock and Malahide, or Sutton Beach being the most popular beaches probably in the county, and public usage at each location. Some of the beaches are busy during the summer, some are not. So following that assessment under those the various headlined items there, Mill Street car parks, that's first 2 hours free of charge and 170 per hour thereafter, with a maximum stay of 3 hours limit. Bridgefield car park, first 2 hours free of charge and 170 per hour thereafter. And there is no max stay on that. It's 2 hours free. If you stay another 2 hours, then you're going to be paying $3.40, which is 2 hours, 170. Coast Road car park, Malahide, the beach, first 2 hours free of charge and €1 per hour thereafter, subject to a maximum charge of €5. The same with Portmarnock Beach car park. And if you think about it, if you're going to, they are the busiest beaches that we have in the county. If you are going to the beach on a very fine day, the maximum you're going to pay is €5, which is very, very reasonable. Red Island car park, now this is just the north car park at Red Island, first 2 hours free of charge and €1 per hour thereafter, subject to a maximum charge of €5. All other car parks at Red Island are free of charge, and we will be putting signage up to inform the public of that. The two car parks are very separate from each other. Holt Summit Car Park, first 2 hours free of charge and €1 per hour thereafter, subject to a maximum charge of €5 per day. Portmarnock Beach Car Park South, Tower Bay, South Beach Car Park, Donabate, Rush, North and South, Balscadden, Carrick, Brackhill, Lochshinny are all free of charge. So we were going out with one first hour free and then charge thereafter. But on the submissions that came in, we have gone with a substantial number of them now are free of charge. Just to outline the bylaws that have been circulated, there is a revocation there. Fingal County Council Parking Control Bylaws 2022, the Amendment Bylaws 23, Amendment Bylaws 2005, Parking Bylaws 2009, Parking Control 2011, and also the 2020 bylaws are hereby revoked. So when you adopt the bylaws, you are revoking all of the previous bylaws that were in place, and that's provided for within the bylaws that have been circulated. Just to say, on the adopted budget, the increased income from car park, it did form part of the budget, and it'll be required for the funding of additional staff resources in all 3 areas, and I am putting increased resources in every area. To fund the increased operational costs, all of the areas are expanding. Increased enforcement of parking bylaws with the engagement of 3 additional traffic wardens, and that is purely for enforcement in each area and for parking on footpaths, for parking on double yellow lines at schools, so it is going to be focused on enforcing the bylaws. Increased cleaning of beaches and villages during the summer months. We have certainly increased expenditure there and increased cost of recycling centre. So just to remind the members that when the budget was adopted, I did make provision for additional income from parking. So as I said, we did go to all of the 3 areas in Q4 2005. So you'll all be fairly familiar with them. We have, I have to say, thanks to the pay parking team led by Niamh Russell and Barbara Ryan, extensive consultation has been done. SPC and then recommended to Court Policy Group, and it's here for approval and adoption by this council. It's a reserve function, as I said. So pursuant to section 101 of the Road Traffic Act 1961 as amended by section 6 and section 36 of the Road Traffic Act 94, number 7 of 94, and having consulted with the Commissioner of An Garda Síochána, Fingal County Council hereby make the parking control bylaws 2026. Thank you very much, members. So any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, so I've received motions from Councillor David Healy, 3 motions, and Councillor Healy's indicating to speak, obviously, but I don't have anyone else yet, so I think I'll go directly to David Healy, and can we get the motions up, please? I can read them out. I can read the first one out if you want to propose the second, but I think they should be on the screen as well. I don't know if you can see that. So that the parking bylaws be amended to allow for the issue of resident parking permits to residents of apartment buildings. So proposed by David Healy and seconded by Brian McDonough. And before you speak, can I just say I live in an apartment in Skerries, and as that's worded, unless there's something attached to it, I'd be entitled to a parking permit and I have a parking space at my building. So unless there's another piece of the bylaws that run with that says you only get a parking permit if you have a need for one. Anyway, so we'll go to David Healy, who's proposing the motion.
Thanks, Chair. The distinction which has been drawn here, I think one of the responses was that the same conditions apply in all other local authorities, and that certainly isn't the case. In Dublin City Council, it is possible to get a parking permit if you live in an apartment. Now, among the other reasons we were given was owing to the density and volume of units, it would not be feasible to facilitate residence permits for all occupiers. And the next reason after that was the purpose-built apartment blocks have allocated parking per apartment. This negates the requirement for on-street residence permits. So reason 1 is we wouldn't be able to cope with the demand, and reason 2 is there is no demand. And I think we need to think about this logically. There are people living in apartments who need residence permits because they don't have a parking space. There are people in apartment complexes who do have parking spaces. They don't need residence permits, so why would they apply for them? So we are not requiring parking spaces in all new apartment developments. In fact, our new development plan, it doesn't allow a parking space with every apartment in new developments. I think there's just an issue of fairness here in that, there are people who've got off-street parking spaces in their houses, but they're entitled to apply for a residence permit for a second or a third, or our limit is 4 cars per unit. The logic that people have a residence parking permit doesn't depend upon the kind of building that they live in. And as I said, Dublin City Council does provide for it. Galway City Council also provides for it. I think Galway has a limit of one permit per apartment in the centre of the city and 2 further out. So I've proposed 3 motions because there are 3 issues which come up here. The first is the residents. The second is the carers, because the entitlement to get carers permits is tied to the definition of a resident. So we won't give a carers permit to somebody living in an apartment block. And the third is visitors permits. So those books of 10 visitors permits that you can get, if you're entitled to a residence permit, you can't get if you're in an apartment block as well. So maybe we'll change all 3, but I've had to kind of word them separately, one after the other. Thanks very much.
Okay. There's no one else indicating to speak. Councillor Dennison. Sorry, I have 3 up now. Councillor Dennison.
Well, as someone who has a lot of constituents living in apartments, I'm very minded to support these motions. And I know one of the reasons we don't allow, or we discourage parking for apartments is under our climate action plan. But in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, most residents will be using electric vehicles. And I'm wondering if we should actually amend a lot of our planning in years to come on the basis that almost everybody will be driving electric vehicles at some stage or other. So if we're not going to support all these, certainly I would be minded to support permits for people with electric cars. That can be done. And next time we sit down to do our parking bylaws, maybe we will take account and encourage people to use electric cars or hybrid vehicles as well in our parking system. Thank you.
Councillor Brendan Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sympathetic to this motion number 1. The working assumption in relation to including this piece in the bylaws is that the assumption is that every apartment by definition has a parking space attached to it, and that's clearly not the case. So I'm sympathetic to that. The other situation which could occur is that basically Fingal Housing Department could very well allocate such an apartment which does not have a parking space allocated to a housing applicant, and therefore that person by definition in this bylaw would not be entitled to a residence parking space. So I'm sympathetic to this motion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Breen McDonough.
Yeah, I think some excellent points have been made, and it's a matter of fairness. There are developments where you have a mix of houses and apartments, and essentially you'll have neighbours with the same status, including some people who already have a parking space as part of their house, not having access or having access to an on-street parking space, but perhaps somebody in an apartment with no access to a parking space not have there. And the other really important piece is access for carers. So I think it's, and in terms of the Mayor's original point around, the motion having to be amended, I think allow for, and I presume, there's an application process that we can put in there in order to look at the criteria for the application in terms of where it is. And generally these are only applied in areas where there's already, where there's some scarcity. And then the allocations on a first come, first serve for people who are eligible to park there. So I very much support this. Thanks.
Councillor Tony Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just think that this first part could be complicated in a sense of exactly what you issue with regard to residence parking. If you have 2 or 3 people living in one apartment and they all want a residence parking spaces, we're developing granting permission to apartments to be built without a designated parking space identified to each apartment. So I think that this is flawed in the thinking. I would be sympathetic to the concept, but I think until we actually are able to offer a parking space, then how can we offer a permit for a space that doesn't exist? And maybe our new director would tell us what sits in our development plan at the moment. I think it's 1.2 cars per unit. I'm not certain, I could be corrected on that. But certainly I think that the flaw in this for me is that if we don't have the space, how can we issue a parking permit? Thank you.
Councillor Patrick Quinlan.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think this just highlights more so the issue of people not really wanting to be forced to have to take public transport everywhere that they go. If the council is approving large-scale residential developments with apartments, they should have car spaces made available for each and every single apartment. I'd actually be in favour of the motion. Yeah.
Councillor Jimmy Gearan.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. My concern with this, and I'd be particularly relating it, for instance, to the recent development that's just been completed in Holt of 581 apartments. And the reason the density was increased by the board, and indeed why people were supportive of it, was because of its location to a DART station. Now, I don't see how we can adopt one position in a development plan, and very strongly, where people were very, and correctly so, robust in their discussions about reducing certain things in relation to parking and parking spaces, and then when it comes up to the bylaws, adopt a different position. To be honest with you, I just find it confusing, because when we did 580 apartments in Holt, we allowed for the amount of parking that was correct to allow for at that time. And my only fear would, where would 200 and 300 people find parking spaces in Holt with a permit? That would be one of my concerns.
Okay, that appears to be all the speakers. I'll just say a few words. The law of unintended consequences. Why would I apply for a parking space when I've got one already? Because I'd like to park in the street in Skerries where I live, free. That's why I do it. So that's the law of unintended consequences, unless there's some words in there saying I have a parking space and I'm not allowed to apply, which there should be. And I'm just going to speak on my own experience where I live in the town, where we're under pressure with, well, people searching and circling. It happened to me today. Go around the town and searching for parking. So suddenly we're going to, I don't know what the import of this motion is. We're going to increase, we'll call it free parking in the town. So the spaces that normally turn over because we're charging €1 or $1.50 or whatever it is an hour, that are available for all the other residents to come down into the town, do their shopping, go to mass and visit the doctor, are suddenly going to be taken up by more people who live in the town parking. So I'm not sure how to square the circle on this one, but that's going to be one of the consequences. There'll be less car spaces available for all the other users who are more in number than the town. So we've 10, 11,000 people living in Skerries, and then we'll have a certain amount around the town. And the carers one is interesting, I have to admit, and the visitor permit, because they're not, you know, there's only so many of them. It doesn't happen too often. But the idea that all the apartments would be entitled to, I'm not sure how this is worded now, would be entitled to, we call it a free car space, or it's 20 or 50 euro for a year or 2 years. I think it'll eat into the high demand parking spaces that we have already, that we have regulated and that we're bringing in these bylaws for. So I'm not sure what to do with this, but we'll go back to Mary T. Daly and see what Mary T. Daly says.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I suppose going forward, the public realm area is going to increase. So it's very important that we have robust parking regulations in place. The issue is the high density apartment blocks. We just don't have the public road space to accommodate applications for parking permits for all occupiers and visitors. And it's going to, introducing something like that is going to put a huge administrative burden to, how do we know who has a parking space in an apartment block and who hasn't a parking space? I let Roisin come in on the planning, but when people apply or when people buy an apartment, they know what they're buying. They're buying it with a space or without a space. In some cases, people don't buy a parking space because they cycle or they use public transport. And there's options there for residents then to take up a second or buy a second car parking space in the apartment. So from the point of view of development, every apartment that comes in, every development that comes in for planning permission, it's assessed for parking, just like it's assessed for all other infrastructure. So it's just not going to be. We have a climate action plan, and the aim of the climate action plan is to reduce the number of journeys we do in cars. So we have to support the climate action plan, and that's what the parking bylaws are doing. With regards to the second motion, I know it's not up there, Mayor, but just for a point of information, we do, if there's a carer visiting somebody in an apartment block, we will give them a permit for parking. We do that for all the carers throughout the county. So that's our position on it.
Okay, right. So back to Councillor Healy. Is there someone else? No, that's it. Councillor Healy. Oh, sorry, Roisin, yes. Sorry, Roisin, planning piece.
Thank you, Mayor. In relation to the car parking standards in the development plan, we divide the county into 2 zones. So zone 1 is developments within 800 metres of a high quality public transport corridor, and any residential unit of 1 or 2 bedroom, there's a requirement to provide 0.5 of a car parking space. And in a residential unit of 3 or more, there's a requirement to provide 1 car parking space per unit. So that's the standard under which developments are assessed.
Okay, so then back to Councillor Healy.
Gurmagad Vera. So, some people buy apartments which have a parking space, and some people buy apartments which don't have parking spaces. Some people buy houses which have parking spaces. Some people buy houses which don't have parking spaces. If you buy a house, even if you have a parking space, you can apply to us for up to 4 residence permits. If you buy an apartment, whether you have a parking space or not, you can't apply for any residence permit. I don't see how we're drawing a line between houses and apartments where we've captured some fairness or distinction. I thought Councillor McDonough was very much to the point that we have developments where there are people who have allocated parking spaces and there are apartments where there's no parking space. And how are we kind of lining up that the people who've got a parking space with their house can apply for 4 extra residence permits for their family, and the people who live in the apartment can't apply for any residence permits for their family? It doesn't make sense. This line that we've drawn between apartments and houses doesn't make sense and isn't fair. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, but now that you raised that matter for me, I'd like to know. What? Oh, sorry, Ciarán, didn't see it. This pops up here sort of milliseconds after I start, or whatever. Councillor Ciarán Dennison.
Sorry, Mayor, just on a point of order, really, just the motion before us is to amend the parking bylaws, but it doesn't tell us what we're amending to. So I'm just wondering what the process or the procedure is here if we pass this motion.
And in that regard, I'm kind of following through with a question. So if we have a house and they can get 4 apartments, 3 or 4 bedroom house, and next door you have a building which is like a house with 4 2-bedroom apartments, how is that going to be regulated? Are they going to get 16 permits? I'm not saying they are, but are they going to get 16 because you have 4 individual resident units? And would they be equivalent of the house? I don't know. How is that regulated? And is the detail buried in our, our regulations here? That detail, I don't know if it is. I'm just putting up the query anyway. Okay, so I don't know, what are we doing here now? Are we going to... Right, Councillor Healy, someone else wants to speak? Do you want to come in? The Chief Executive?
You are involved in a statutory process, so clarity in terms of what the change is to the bylaws is needed in order for us to have valid bylaws tomorrow. So the proposed change to the bylaws would have to be clear.
Right. Okay, Councillor Healy.
Thanks, Mayor. We haven't been circulated with the final version of the bylaws. They weren't in the pack.
They were circulated today. They have been circulated, and the changes that we're proposing are in the presentations that we would have given to the area meeting.
So they were circulated
Do you
today.
want me to go down through you all have a copy of the bylaws that were circulated today. Do you want me to go down through everything that's been changed is in red? We can go down through them if you bring them up on your screen.
No, is the answer. With the relevant section, maybe. Point of order, Jimmy Gearan.
Sure.
If we could have...
Yeah.
Just if we could get clarity from Director of Planning, that is the bylaws as being proposed are structured and in accordance with the development plan that we've adopted.
Okay, we'll get an answer to that.
The assessment of car parking on any planning application is for car parking on private land, so the bylaws are on a public space, so it's two different applications.
All right.
Members, I suppose it's not ideal that this is put forward at the last moment. I'm not sure of the sentiment of the Chamber. If the motion is put to a vote, we'll have to take it away and see the consequence for the draft bylaws and therefore defer the adoption of the bylaws tonight.
Okay. Right, so Councillor Healy, what would you like to do?
Chair, I'm happy to have a vote on it if the meeting wishes.
As worded, as it stands before us. You want to take 3 minutes? Okay, I think we'll go to the vote. Right, vote. Is that... We want 3 minutes, but... No. 3 minutes? Three minutes. Take 3 minutes. Okay, we're starting the meeting again. Thank you. And the Chief Executive would like to come in.
Mayor and councillors, I have a proposed way forward, which I'm just putting to the floor. Depending on your view, we can decide how to move forward. I suppose this particular issue and the other two motions do have consequences for other people. So there'll be people who are advantaged and people who are disadvantaged. My suggestion is, having regard to the level of work that has taken place on the draft bylaws, that we proceed to adopt the bylaws as presented to you today, that following that adoption or post that adoption, that we will consider this issue and the consequence for the bylaws as adopted today. And if the members are so minded that it should become part of future bylaws, that we would move in quick order to consider it and then ultimately put revised bylaws on display so that people can have their input to this particular issue. There's no doubt if we have an individual street and there's individual residents and then there's an apartment block, the demand for parking on that street goes up by whatever fold it is in terms of the number of units in the apartment block. So it probably is most fair to consider every aspect of it, to put it out on display. And then, as was mentioned by councillors, the number of permits per dwelling is also a factor. And perhaps one would need to change if the demand were to go up by such an extent on a street. So the benefit of adopting the park bylaws today as presented is it allows that change to the charge for parking spaces to be initiated on the 1st of February as we budgeted for in Budget 2026. This particular issue, although was raised in the public consultation, it's no different than had been previously provided for in the bylaws. So I think to take it away, consider the implications, bring back to you any amendments and allow that public display to happen. But the disadvantage of trying to change it today is that we haven't considered the consequences, and that may delay implementing all the good parts of the proposed revised bylaws. So if that were agreeable to you, I think the sequence of events would be to adopt the bylaws, see how this motion goes on the floor, and if it's passed, then we'd have to take it away and consider the implications on the adopted bylaws that are adopted today. So that's a compromise. I think it might work best in terms of what's on the floor for you today.
Okay, I'll go back to Councillor Healy.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, and to be fair, you're first up on the screen here. Okay, go ahead, Carl.
I think that what's been said is reasonable, but that's not to preempt the situation. Short order, or I'm not quite sure what the phrase was, but it was an indefinite period of time that the consideration would be held over. And I think that it would be important that there would be a set, that they would come back to the February meeting, the March meeting, you know, that it doesn't drag on for forever.
Okay, now go back to Councillor Healy.
And thanks to the Chief Executive for that. I think that's very constructive. I'm certainly happy with that approach.
Okay, so what I propose to do now, do you want to indicate when we're going to bring this back before I make a move on the next step? When might this come back to the council? What's the procedure and time that Carl Boland's raising there?
I think in a straightforward way it would be a headed item at either February or March.
No later than March. The report was at no later than March.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So as per the Chief Executive recommendation, I'm now going to propose the adoption of the draft bylaws as per the resolution. Agree.
I don't think, and obviously this is a legal process here. If we call 3 minutes on a roll call vote, does that motion not have to be discharged before you go to that resolution? Or can the motion be withdrawn after the 3 minutes after a roll call vote has been called?
Oh, that's it. Yes. Okay. Yeah, have you. Right, I'll take advice on my left or right. Yeah, and you're right, the motion was proposed and seconded, it was up to the floor here. So.
Sorry, Mayor, can I just come in? Any changes, once the bylaws are adopted, any changes made, I have to go back to the very beginning and start the whole process under the legislation. You can't amend a bylaw. You have to go out on public consultation and do the full consultation. I won't have that done by March, I'm sorry. I won't have it done by March.
That's a different question now. So what am I doing with this motion that's before the floor now? I'm asking for advice here, thanks. Do I have to take the motion?
We have to do the vote.
Yeah? Unless the motion's withdrawn, I have to take the motion. The proposer is happy to withdraw the motion. Okay, so now I'm going to put the formal motion that pursuant to Section 101 of the Road Traffic Act 1961 as amended by Section 6, Road Traffic Act 1968 and Section 36 of the Road Traffic Act 1994 brackets number 7 of 1994 close the brackets, and having consulted with the Commissioner of Garda Síochána, Fingal County Council hereby make Parking Control Bylaws 2026 and Fingal County Council Parking Control Bylaws 2020 are hereby revoked. Proposed, I'll propose. Someone is seconded by Kieran Dennison. Is that agreed? Agreed. And we're noting that the management are going to come back with something to Councillor Healy and all of us on the former motion.
To be clear, what I will come back with is the process that will be required if you're going to make changes to it. It won't be a change to it as such, if you get what I mean. It does require going through the public consultation.
Okay, I think that's noted. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is, where am I now? Number 18, draft Fingal County Council Strategic Policy Committee's annual policy programme. I'd propose if someone would seconded by Kieran Dennison. Is everyone okay with that? Is that agreed? Thank you. Okay, we go on to the next item, which is 19, the sports equipment and activity grants. We have a presentation on that. And this was recommended by the CPG. I think the amount is in the order of 150,000. David's story and or...
Yeah, just Emily is getting set up there. Just give the members a briefing on this. So obviously, this is sports equipment and activity grants. The members may remember that Naomi was here a couple of months ago with the community grant scheme, and there was a proposal to transfer 30,000 of the community activity funding over to sports. So we revised our sports grants, and it's now sports equipment and activity grants. And Emily, just do a short presentation. This has been to SPC and CPG and recommended by the CPG. Emily.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening, members. So as Dave said, the grants budget provision for 2026 has 170,000 for the current sports equipment grants and then 30,000 for this new funding stream, which is activity funding grants. In the current scheme, we have two grants: the large sports equipment grant, maximum funding available up to €4,000. This is to assist clubs in acquiring larger equipment or embarking on projects that demand a significant investment. So, for example, portable goal posts, lawn mowers, storage container or digital scoreboards. This large sports equipment grant can only be applied for every 2 years. And then our second grant is the Essential Sports Equipment Grant. The maximum funding available is €1,500. So this is for kind of your everyday, week-to-week items, training balls, cones, whistles, tackle bags, etc. And this is to help clubs purchase essential sports equipment that's needed, as I said, for daily training and activities. Clubs can only apply for one grant per year. Our new sports activity grant, it's creating a new fund similar to the Communities Get Moving fund that was in effect in 2023 and 2024. So it's an activity or an event that will increase participation through physical activity, and that's open to everyone in the community. It's eligible to all sports clubs affiliated to NGBs. Some examples, I suppose, of activities or events would be like a club blitz, a glow-in-the-dark event, a family fun day, community walk or run. And I suppose just to say that this is a non-exhaustive list, and the sports department are happy to talk to clubs and get ideas, provided it fulfills the criteria, the main criteria, which is that it will increase participation through physical activity and is open to everybody. This scheme will be open all year round and is capped at €500 per club, and clubs can apply for this scheme and one of the sports equipment grant schemes in the same calendar year. So as Dave mentioned, in relation to the community department, it's proposed that they would transfer 30k annually in funding to the sports office and we would administer the scheme. Clubs will need to demonstrate the benefit of the event that they're proposing to host or to hold, and the amount of people who will benefit or participate in the event, and then supply us with a post-event report. Thank you.
Okay, is that agreed? Anyone want to ask any questions? So if it's not, I'm going to propose it. Somebody will second it, and it's agreed. Agreed, yes? Thank you. So now we're on to Chief Executive's report, and I'll go to the Chief Executive.
Well, Happy New Year to everybody. I did email you last week with some organisational changes, and I'd like to thank the management team for moving into their new roles and taking them on from day one of 2026. If you have any queries in relation to those changes, please talk to me directly. I don't want to delay the meeting today, but very pleased that we've been able to strengthen our management team with an additional Director of Service. And that reflects, I suppose, the level of activity that we're involved in, the budgets that you have adopted, both the revenue budget and the capital budget, and the enhanced scale of delivery of housing, and of course we hope economic development in the county in the coming years. So it really reflects the stage of maturity that the council is at. Aside from that, you'll be aware that the variation of the development plan is on display at the moment, and that won't be subject to further discussion until the end of the consultation period, which is on the 29th of January. The report's presented to you then. If you have any queries, myself and the management team are happy to answer those.
Okay. I'm anxious to get to motions. Yes, Patrick Quinlan, first up.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll go straight to the chase. The Chief Executive's report is nothing short of a deliberate smokescreen. The foreword speaks about our continuing growth of population in the county as the excuse for the whole restructure, while omitting where this population growth is coming from. The Chief Executive, Anne-Marie Farley, it's a straight-up selective narrative construction, and cramming Roisin Burke into Director of Planning and Development while giving Paul Carroll his own housing fiefdom is just bureaucratic window dressing for a crisis you're refusing to name. Ireland's fertility rate has plummeted to 1.5 in 2025. Native births are collapsing way below replacement levels, but the population year after year continues to rise, and Fingal's exploding because of foreign inflows, not Irish families having children. Simply stop denying it and admit it.
Where is this in the Chief Executive's report?
It's on the forward of Chief Executive's report, and I'll have 10 seconds onto the clock, please, and thanks. So simply stop denying it and admit it. Non-nationals are the primary engine here in terms of population growth and increasing demand for housing within the county, or explain why this report omits population growth from foreign nationals while they ran through changes to cope with it. Fingal County Council is not just reacting to this crisis, you're simply accelerating it. This ties into massive rezoning push in the variation to the 2023-2029 development plan, adding land for another 5,000 homes, including rushing a new housing development at the old Dunsink landfill with a local authority area plan due early 2026 for 2,500 units alone. That's on top of the existing pipeline for thousands more across Churchfields, Charlestown, Ongar, and so on. You're rezoning massive tracts to chase government mandated targets that scream migration pressure. Why no emergency debate on prioritising Irish applicants? Why is there no motions from other councillors to do just that? The social housing report you make a nod to in your forward, Chief Executive. You're soon to be standalone housing department Chief Paul Carroll.
That's it. Time is up. Time is up. Your time is up. Thank you. So, Angela, your time is up, legitimately up. You went over time. So, Angela Donnelly.
Thank you. I'll be a lot quicker, and thanks to the report. I'd just like some information on the Younger Barnhill Link Road. Have we any idea when it will be open? Thanks.
Sorry. Jimmy Kieran.
Look, first of all, I'd like to thank the Chief Executive for the report. The only thing I was going to say is I'd like to congratulate the new Director of Planning, and I'd like to thank the outgoing Director of Planning, Director McAleese. We had many robust rows in the chamber, and the beauty of it is when we walked out, they were forgotten and we got on with our business. So I'd like to wish both well in their new role. Thanks very much.
Okay, Councillor John Burchell.
Thanks, Chair. I didn't think I'd be speaking on the Chief Executive's report in defence of the Chief Executive, but I feel I have to come in. The crisis that Councillor Quinlan is referring to is multiple crises cannot be laid at the feet of migrant people. the housing crisis, the public services crisis, transport, infrastructure, all of these the roots of the crisis in all of these areas can be found in our economic model, which prioritises profit over the needs of society generally. That's why we're facing this crisis. You can see the leading nation, the US, of this socio-economic order, flailing around the globe now. It's going to create many more millions of migrants and refugees trying to escape the wars and the coups and the climate breakdown that America is driving. Iran is now in the firing line, Venezuela last week, and Greenland next week. So will Councillor Quinlan be blaming the Greenland people when they have to evacuate from their own country? No. The problem lies at the feet of capitalism,
10
not
seconds.
people fleeing the excesses of that system.
Okay, thank you. J.K. Onamwera.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the Chief Executive's report. First would be to congratulate the new Director for Planning and Roisin. But the second issue I think I need to raise is in respect of Councillor Quinlan's remarks. I think it's very important that when we speak in the chamber, we need to be really mindful of the sensitivity and the sensibilities of the issue we raise to address people as non-nationals. I think it's been long agreed that that is inappropriate. And regardless of the merit or demerit, or regardless of the issues you want to communicate, using that term non-nationals is absolutely unacceptable, and I strongly object to its usage. And I call on the Mayor to ask you to withdraw that usage and look for a more appropriate term to refer to any group of people. I take total exception to the use of that language while I sit right here in this chamber. Withdraw that language right now. Councillor Quinlan, thank you.
Okay, before we go to the next speaker, I'm going to offer Councillor Quinlan the opportunity to do that if he wants to use a different word, but I don't know. Councillor Quinlan, do you want to reply to that? So go ahead.
Just the mic, yep. The councillor can take issue with what the terms I've used, but the fact of the matter is that the SSHA report that was mentioned in the Chief Executive report and that I found and discovered and sent on to Paul Carroll mentions Irish, UK, EAA citizens. It also mentions non-EA citizens, and it also refers to non-Irish as well. So take your issues up with the department, not me.
Okay, you're not withdrawing the comment. Okay, Grant. So we're going on to Councillor Joe Newman.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I was just looking in the report there about the success of XWell medical programme, and just recall when I put this forward a couple of years ago, looking for some funding for them. It was quite a bit of a challenge, but at the end of the day, there was a grant forthcoming for them. And by all accounts from the report here, they're doing very well. I know I've met many people in the Swords area that have availed of that programme, and their health has increased, dramatically. And it's really been a great programme. I'm just hoping, and I'm not too sure if we've been able to carry on with the funding, but if we have, that would be good. If not, I'd like to try and maybe make an application for them somewhere along the way. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks to the Chief Executive for the report. And just like Councillor Guerin, I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate Ms Burke on being appointed as Director of Planning and Development, and also thank Mr McAleese for his work. I mean, I haven't always agreed with either of them, and it would be very boring if we always agreed. But they've always, both of them consistently, have always acted in a very professional and constructive way, and I know they'll continue to do that. I hadn't planned to speak at length, and I'm still going to be pretty brief, but just to say something in terms of population, because that was the hook that Councillor Quinlan used for his contribution. quite baffled that a councillor from Dublin 15 seems to be unaware of the real patterns of population growth in our area. Dublin 15 is one of the fastest growing areas in Western Europe, and it has been since the 2006 census. And that's the case at times of relatively low migration. It's the case at a time when migration consisted more of returning Irish emigrants, as it did in 2006 and 2012, or more recently with the more significant migration in 2022. So in every census since 2006, Dublin 15 has either been in the top 5 or the top 2 areas of population growth in the state. That's not due to migration. It's a myth, Mayor, that the housing crisis is caused by migration, and it's a myth that we need to call out consistently, whatever our other political differences. The housing crisis reflects a social housing crisis, which is at least 20 years old, the collapse of the building of affordable housing during the crash, and the financialisation of housing and use of housing as a commodity. So I think we need to take a break for the facts now and then, and make sure that while we're all entitled to our opinions and we're entitled to our views, we are operating on the basis of evidence and factual argument. I regret to say Councillor Quinlan wasn't doing that. Thanks very much, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor, very short. Go ahead.
All my stats and statistics come directly from the Central Statistics Office. So I invite John Walsh to go have a read over, and in particular over the last 10 years present me a report.
Councillor Mulligan, yeah.
Quinlan made a very, very unfair statement regards memberships of this council and how membership was distributed and roles taken up by members of this council, of executive, okay? And he equated those roles as a direct consequence of migration and failure of systems. And now, can I? No, it says it. It's exactly. So you
right. Okay. So Councillor Mulligan has the floor.
You can't make assertions. If you can't prove it. The only thing you've proven tonight is that you're a racist and you're a disgusting person.
Right. Okay.
No,
look.
That is exactly what he's proved.
Yes. Okay. Right. Look it. We have a. Right. Okay. We're going back to the normal meeting. I've Councillor Ted Leddy taken your point. Yeah. Yes. But you've made your point of order. Unless you want to keep going, I don't know. And I agree with you. You have the floor. You should be able to finish your point, and then I will consider, not necessarily agree, and let someone back in. Anyway, Councillor Ted Leddy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to bring this back to the Chief Executive's report. I recommend others do the same. I was glad to see on the report the issue of abandoned vehicles being discussed, because every council has had to deal with this, and we all know how frustrating it can be. So I was glad to see it written down in the Chief Executive's report, very clear what the rules are about when it is the council's responsibility and when it's the Guard's responsibility, because that's something we've all struggled with a little bit. I have to say, though, if you do read the stats, it says that 423 vehicles were reported as abandoned to the council last year, and only 21 were removed. And I understand why that is, because if you read the rules, in most cases it is the Gardaí's responsibility. But the one that concerns me the most is the category of vehicles that are registered outside of the Republic of Ireland, because I believe that is by far the most category. I believe that is where most of the cars that are abandoned, that's the reason why they're abandoned, and that's the responsibility of the Gardaí. Until the council takes responsibility for that category, it's going to continue to remain a problem, because it's vehicles registered outside the country, people who've returned to their home countries. They're the cars that end up being abandoned for a year or 18 months, because it's low down in the Garda priority and we're not dealing with it. So until we take responsibility for that, it's going to continue to be a problem, and I might bring that forward in a later motion. Thanks.
All right, Councillor James Humphreys, and Councillor Humphreys, I think, has a motion. Okay. I haven't seen it yet. Okay. Okay, I'm being directed that it's an area item. It should be for area committee. But if you want to speak
for our own motions, I'll
speak
withdraw.
to it, go ahead.
No, I'd much prefer we reach our motions in this meeting.
Okay, Grant. All right, so next of Councillor Brendan Ryan.
On page 96 of the CEO's report under the subheading Skerry's Active Travel Plan, it states that non-statutory consultation ends on the 9th of January. In fact, it's the 19th of January. Important to change that detail in case anyone relying on that information considers they might be too late to make a submission. There's a week to go. Many observations already in and expectation of many more in the week ahead. I would ask that in preparation of a final plan following consideration of the observations received, that due recognition needs to be taken to the fact that the purest form of active travel is in fact walking, and that walking infrastructure is just as valid as cycling infrastructure in any active travel plan. So the key point I want to make now is that it is not necessary for cycling infrastructure to be present on every metre of every road, of every street, of every active travel area for it to be a valid and good active travel plan. An example is Harbour Road, another part of Skerries, where there is proposal for shared space. So it is proposed when it's necessary, so it should be proposed as a significant option as well. So, but there's no doubt we'll be talking about this in due course. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Paul Mulville.
Just 3 quick points. Firstly, in terms of, I want to welcome the intercultural calendar produced by the Fingal integration team. It's an excellent publication, and I think it highlights the important work the Fingal integration office is doing, as we know this is one of the diverse and dynamically growing counties, and the work to improve social inclusion is hugely important. I think we all most of us support the integration office in that work. Secondly, in terms of the Newbridge, some controversy about, in terms of the Chief Secretary report, Newbridge House, the work being done on the boundary wall, there's discussions about that locally. I think it's important. I think we look at the best practice around conservation, and I know there's a lot of discussion around that, but I think the work's been done to the much needed and long anticipated works on the boundary wall being carried out in terms of restoring and repairing the wall, and best conservation practices, what we really need to stick to. And I think we need to maybe have a bit more explanation to the public about why it's being done, but it should be done. And finally, in terms of the coastal erosion works at Portrane over Christmas, the great engagement by all the council staff, just to really thank everyone involved in that. It's hugely welcomed by the people in the borough in Portrane, and we look forward to the next stage and the report back from the OPW. Thanks very much.
Okay, Councillor J.K. Onawera. Coming back.
Thank you, Mayor. Whilst I would have loved not to go back to this issue, but I think sometimes, when we gloss over important issues, people take it for granted that it's acceptable. So once again, I go back to my call for Councillor Quinlan to withdraw that comment used, especially referring to people as non-nationals. It's been long agreed that it's not an acceptable term, and for the purpose of educating everyone, just in the case there's a level of ignorance being adduced here, there's absolutely no body who is without a nationality. So the use of the term non-nationals essentially is very derogatory, it's racist, and it's unacceptable. However, I think the call I'm going to make further on is to ask for the publication you are referring to, because the one you referenced I'm aware of, and I did not see the term used in the publication in question. However, I think it's very important to hold you to account for having used that particular term, and to ask that we see the particular publication that made reference to individuals or any member of any community as non-nationals. And I personally will be taking it further on, not with you personally, but with the author of that publication. Thank you.
Okay, that request was put already and the offer wasn't taken up. So we're moving on. So it's Councillor Karina Johnson.
Thank you. Just a very quick one. Portran Road Enhancement Scheme, I noticed that it's mentioned in the Chief Executive's report there. I'm just wondering, has the tender documents been issued to the market yet? And will that project then go ahead in March? And the duration of the project, and just also to add my thanks to the Chief Executive, to Mr McAleese, Mary T. Daly and their staff, Kevin Halpenny, Colin Gallagher, in their response before Christmas to the devastation in Portrane as a result of the storm. I think, look, the community of Portrane have been given some hope, which they didn't have leading up to that storm. So I just want to pass on my thanks to everybody involved. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brian McDonough.
Yeah, I just want to support Councillor O'Meara. You know, there are times where people use language kind of accidentally without really kind of any due thought about it, or not deliberately intending to cause kind of harm or through ignorance. This isn't one of those times, and I don't think it's acceptable. So I just want to voice my support for Councillor O'Meara. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Malachy Quinn.
I'd also want to support Councillor O'Meara. I had a situation previously, if you recall, that I was very careless about the use of non-national, and I regretted that when I was highlighted this by Councillor O'Meara. This is not the same as what has been just stated today or this evening. Go back to the Chief Executive report. Just two issues. Just in relation to emergency accommodation, there really is an important focus that needs to be from Fingal about sourcing more additional emergency accommodation, working with the Dublin Region Home Executive. I can't overstate, and I've stated it again, I'll say it again, places like Balbriggan, Rush, Lusk, areas in North County Dublin where people are finding themselves having to access emergency accommodation. The children are attending school locally, and there's a lot of displacement, a lot of upheaval in them families. So I just want to raise that again. Just in relation to the active travel, and in particular, we're going to see a lot of change. We have seen a lot of changes through the active travel plan, but there is some estates that need to be relooked at. And look, I'm highlighting Downside Estate again, and all of the local councillors, the 5 councillors have got reference back from the residents. It is a quite narrow road, to have the works to encroach so much onto that road is quite dangerous. And an issue that was highlighted today with me from a resident was, it is an older estate, and if we have a situation where we need an ambulance and a lorry coming at the same time, it is actually near next to impossible for that to be facilitated. So I just to be mindful as we go through our active travel plan in towns like Skerries and other places, that we're mindful of the actual implications of that in narrow roads such as where Downside is. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all the speakers. I'll say a few words. I just want to follow through the last comment by Councillor Quinn about Downside Heights and the entrance in and out, and the process isn't finished, but it's one way in and one way out. I'm fed up driving it, trying to test it to see if I'm imagining in it. I'm not. It's not working. We need to fix it, and Linda Lally and the team need to look at that, and it's going through a process. I want to refer to the beginning, Councillor Quinlan made some comments about staff at the top table here, and I'm absolutely not sure what he said, but it didn't sound positive, and I referred to a fiefdom and referred to Paul Carroll, who's busting his gut trying to deliver houses in this county for everybody. And for any derogatory comments to be made of a political nature against staff up here in a live meeting that's webcast is, in my opinion, unacceptable. And I'm not happy with it at all. I'm in favour of free speech, reasonable free speech, people speaking. I'm sure you've noticed, I let you all speak. I don't try and cut you down or cut you off, but we have to be responsible with what we say and reasonable in what we say. And to, how to put it? Well, there's another way of putting it, attack hard-working staff here that take calls at all hours of the day and night and at weekends and go out and try and deliver houses in this housing crisis that we're all struggling with. I don't think that's an acceptable way for a councillor to behave, but we have free speech and that's the way it is. Anyway, we have a lot of good news in this Chief Executive's report, and I'm looking forward to opening 2 libraries this month, one in Donabate and one in Skerries. Serious investment in our county. Paul Carroll on site, on various sites all around the county. All sorts of, we're going to have the programme of works coming anyway to my area next Thursday with a lot of investment in it, improving things. There's a lot of positive stuff going on in the Chief Executive's report in this council that we need to sell the message out there, and it's very unfortunate that most of the time, or a lot of the time here, was taken up discussing something very negative and personal that did affect J.K. Onamwera over there and many more people around the county if they're listening in. My wife is one of those. She's an Irish national from another country, and to be referred to in any different way when people like that, sorry to use that phrase, are actually more Irish than some of us. They really appreciate Ireland. They appreciate the vote in Ireland. They appreciate all the things we have here in this country. And to divide and conquer and blame difficulties on those people, that sounds very cold, but you know what I'm saying, is not correct or right. Anyway, so we move on back to the Chief Executive if you want to reply to some of those points. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor and members. Just for the avoidance of doubt, just to confirm that the organisational change is proposed to implement the policies that this council adopts, including the Fingal Development Plan, which plans the housing and economic growth of the county, supported by a lot of strategies to make sure that happens in terms of our housing strategy and our economic development strategy. I also mentioned at our capital programme that we had €60 million worth of projects on site in 2019. Today we've 750 million. That does require resources and management, and I'm thankful to the management team who have managed to deliver that on site. But it is time just to resource that a little bit more, and that's one of the reasons for the proposed change. I could go on and mention Metro and Bus Connects and other infrastructure projects that other agencies will be delivering. So very much needed that we resource ourselves accordingly and we attract those projects to the county, get them delivered quickly, and also make sure that that the budgets that goes with it comes to the county. Thanks to the Mayor for mentioning the 2 libraries. Again, community centre opening on Saturday. Those types of projects do not get delivered without a strong management team, and the organisational change is proposed on that basis. Just to clear up, we do not propose to deliver housing on Dunsink landfill. Just to be clear on that, Dunsink landfill will be a regional park in the future, and the area of land surrounding it, which is housing land, hopefully will be delivered quite quickly as housing, both social and private housing, will be planned on that site. We'll be bringing you the planning framework for that in due course. I think Councillor Newman mentioned the XL medical programme that will be continued in 2026. In terms of the abandoned vehicles, I might ask some of my colleagues to come in on that, and as well as to confirm the date of the consultation for the Skerries Active Travel Plan. I will just go back to the coastal erosion and to, I suppose, to acknowledge the difficulty that's faced by the community of Portrane. Our team have been working on that for some time. They understand it better, I think, than most, and we will do everything we can to support the community as we've been doing over the last number of years. But I appreciate the difficulty that they've faced in recent months, and we'll try and help them where we can. Again, I might ask the team to come in on the issues that are relevant to them, starting with Mr. Story.
Thanks, Chief Exec. Just on XWell, I know Chief Exec has mentioned the funding is there. There's funding from Healthy Ireland and funding from sport, so that will continue. On the abandoned cars, I'm pleased to announce to members that we have been getting legal advice on that, and we are now able to start removing vehicles that are from foreign nationals countries. So UK reg, European reg cars that are there for a period of time. So we're putting notices on those cars at the moment, and we had some success where people are moving the cars voluntarily. So that's something where we've received legal advice after speaking to the guards and our solicitors on that. So that's only come in December. And just in relation to the active travel plan for Skerries, following a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, we were asked to extend the date to the 19th of January, which we did, and we wrote out to those stakeholders. That's an error in the report, and I apologise for that.
Just two queries there. Councillor Donnelly, just in relation to the Onger Barnhill Link Road, we had some engagement with the contractor at the end of last week, so very positive news, and we'll be working with the Mayor to look for a date in his diary for the official opening in the coming weeks. So we'll as soon as we have a date, we'll circulate that to all the councillors. And just Councillor Johnston, just in relation to the tender docs for the Port Rand Road, I need to come back to you on that. I would be very confident that it has gone out, but I'll just confirm that with you.
In relation to emergency accommodation, we work very closely, the team in the housing section in Fingal County Council, and work very closely with the team in the Dublin Regional Homeless Executive. We have a number of properties under consideration at the moment for use as homeless accommodation, emergency accommodation, and we do expect a call for properties to issue in the coming weeks from the DRHE on behalf of Fingal County Council and the other three Dublin local authorities to see if there are additional suitable properties within Fingal available for use, which will help us to provide accommodation that's more convenient and more close to where people have their family connections.
Is that all? That's all the directors, yes? Okay, so that's the Chief Executive's report. Going to move on to the next item, which is 21. Yes? Right, the report is noted. So next item, Mayor's Business, Councillor Tom O'Leary. This is a proposal. Chief Executive hosts a civic reception for Mr. Pat Reen, who is retiring after many years of service nationally to Disability Services and Prosper Fingal. I'd like to propose that if someone would. I propose Councillor Owen Bryan seconded. Is that agreed? Thank you. And then the next one is similar, but it'll be a reception at the Area Committee, that the Chief Executive hold a civic reception for Balbriggan Cricket Club, who have achieved All-Ireland Championship status, proposed and by me and seconded by Councillor Grania Maguire. Thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. And then we go on to conference report, which is noted. So 22A, the Lama Authorities Members Associated, noted. Correspondence noted, so it's A to H, noted. And then departmental ministerial correspondence 24A, noted. And then we're going to motions. So it's 25, Councillor Cahill Haughey, oversight report into electoral registers, proposed by Councillor Haughey, I presume, seconded by Councillor Owen O'Brien. Do you want the report read, Councillor Haughey, or will I go? Do you want to speak?
We can take it as read now, yeah, I'll just speak.
Okay, right.
So, yeah, I put this in. It says the recent Electoral Commission report. Obviously, it's not recent anymore, but just shows how long it takes to get a motion heard at our council meetings. But we obviously know how important it is, the right to vote. It's the cornerstone of our democracy, but electoral registers all over Ireland include many people who it shouldn't, through duplications and through deaths. And it does not include many people who it should, who should be registered. So I did my thesis in college on this subject, so it's something I do know a little bit about. There's a lot of talk about turnout figures, particularly since the last presidential election, but the truth is our turnout figures are not accurate because electoral registers all over the country are not accurate. Now in Fingal, it's better than in most. Out of the 31 councils, in terms of having our electors' PPSNs, we're 5th. In terms of having electors' air codes, we're in 8th place.
but we struggle with in terms of date of births. We're 24th out of 31, which is quite poor. So I just would have a question about what is our plan to increase getting people to put down their date of birth when they register to vote, because that's how we remove the duplications, especially when the PPSN and the date of birth are linked. That's how we're going to remove duplications. I know anyone in here who's lived in more than one house, they probably get polling cards sent to loads of different addresses, or even in the house that they live in now, they probably get polling cards sent from people who lived there maybe 5-10 years ago. So it is a problem that we all face. The electoral register is a great tool for councillors. I do use it often. You know, if you get contacted by someone who says their name and they live on a street and there's a pothole outside and they forgot to give their house number, it's a handy way to just check it instead of emailing them back. So, you know, the data shows, according to this report, that there was an overall increase of 21,500 people registered to Fingal between February 23 and December 24. So that's an 11% increase, which is quite big. There was obviously a lot of electoral events in between that time, and we've had a presidential election since this motion was put in. So there mightn't be the numbers to hand there, but do we have a rough idea of how many people might have registered in the lead up to the presidential election? And yeah, so just there's 6 staff members now. I see there was 2 additional. Was there any more staff members hired in advance of the presidential election? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to Mary T. Daly for, is it Mary? No, Mary Egan, sorry. Mary Egan.
You can go ahead, Mary, if you'd like. Thank you, Mayor. And a number of questions raised there by Councillor High. And I suppose it's important to note that the Electoral Reform Act of 2022 introduced major reforms to the electoral registration process for everybody within the process. And the key component of the legislation is the introduction of a central shared database to be managed by one local authority. And for the first time, the Irish electoral registration process will be supported by a single secured electoral register database. And we're in the process of migrating onto that system. The 4 Dublin local authorities are using it, but it's just to formally, that will happen later this year, and then followed by the remaining local authorities across the country by year end. So to answer some of the questions, I suppose it's important to note that the responsibility for ensuring that you're on the electoral register rests with the individual themselves. But having said that, all of the local authorities, and Fingal is no exception, put in a huge amount of effort in terms of getting new people registered to vote onto the register. And we do that by, we're very proactive in terms of we visit the TY Expo every year. We visit third level colleges, the DCU, Blanchardstown IT. Coming up to electoral events, we're there at shopping centres, Flavour of Fingal, you know, all of the main events. We're there to encourage people to check the register and then to actually register themselves onto it. The dates of birth were mentioned, and everybody who does come on to voter.ie to register to vote does input their date of birth. So the dates of birth are the level of the data that we have is increasing because everybody that's newly registered comes on. The issue is that the vast majority of people who are already registered, unless they contact us or we have occasion to contact them, then we have no opportunity to collect the additional data. But every time we have an interaction with anybody who's on the register, we request their date of birth, their PPSN number, etc. And I suppose until that becomes mandatory, we can't insist that people give us that information. Some do, some don't. Some are more reluctant to give, for obvious reasons, their PPS numbers and dates of birth. But we are making quite significant progress in terms of updating all of the data. on the register, and a lot of work has been done in preparation for the migration. I don't have the numbers to hand for those that would have registered coming up to the presidential election, but I can certainly circulate those numbers. I do know that we weren't as busy ahead of the presidential election as we were with the general election and the local elections, but I think that reflects that a lot of people got themselves onto the register, and the changes made on those other 2 electoral events, which came in kind of quick succession, if you like. But I suppose it's an ongoing process in terms of keeping our register up to date. And we have, as the report says, we do have 6 people working full-time on the register now, and that's thanks to the additional 2 that have been funded through central government for us, which we are very appreciative of, and they are contributing quite significantly to the work of the unit. And I think 6 in the unit is probably one of the higher staffed electoral registers across the country as well, but equally we have a significant register to manage. So I think that answers the questions, Mayor.
Okay, I'll go back to the proposer, but the motion is calling that the Chief Executive makes a plan to ensure increased accuracy of the electoral register. So the options are to put the motion or accept the report. Back to Cathal Haughey.
I'm happy to accept the report, but just 1 or 2 quick comments. Thanks for the replies there. I do appreciate that. And I suppose we're in a situation now where there's probably not going to be, hopefully not going to be, an election in Fingal County Council for the next 3 or 4 years. So it's going to be hard probably to motivate people to check their details and to register to vote. But maybe also gives us an opportunity where we're not as busy that we can try and sign up more people. Just the other thing, I think I requested a copy of the updated register of electors. There's a email address, I think it's called Electoral Fingal Electors or Electoral Register Fingals. I asked for that a few months ago. That could be a good idea to send us all that maybe every January or whatever, because it is handy, as I said, when you're going through correspondence from constituents. But overall, very happy to accept the report. Thank you.
Okay, report accepted. So we'll go on to number 26, Councillor Paul Mulville, Biodiversity Budget 2025. And sorry, Mayor Egan, I presume you provide that information. Councillor asked for. So we're at 26, proposed by Councillor Paul Mulville, Biodiversity Budget 2025, seconded by Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Hopkins is going to propose the motion, actually.
So proposed by Councillor Hopkins, seconded by Paul Mulville. The other way around. Okay, you want to speak to it? Okay.
Quite how long we're waiting for this one to come up, but I just wanted to clarify in response to the response I have received. I'm not sure exactly what that means, because there seems to be a bit of confusion between the departments. We've been invited to the Biodiversity Forum on the 29th of January, and participants have been asked to review the list of priority actions. And we have been advised that it's become clear that funding will not be provided to implement the Biodiversity Action Plan in full. So we've been asked to have a look at what's on the list and how we're going to prioritise those. So we need to prioritise based on a reflection of the actual available budget. So I'm not sure now whether you're saying that in response to my question that it will be funded in full, and if that is the case, would it be possible to refer to the biodiversity officer and advise him, or is there a gap in the budget that has been identified, and can we get an explanation for that? Because in the last term we had agreed the budget. I know that we have there's a man in the White House now who says climate change is a hoax. He has banned wind farms now on top of everything else that he's doing, but it's easy for us, and I have seen biodiversity and climate just come off the agenda nationally, but we all agreed in here that it was very, very, very important. We spoke earlier about Portrane and the damage that is happening and will continue to happen if we don't take action. So if you could just confirm to me that we have committed the funding, we have enough funding, and that will be referred back to the biodiversity officer. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor David Healy.
Cormac Vera. And I suppose this goes back to the work that was done in drawing up a biodiversity plan. And really when you look at our kind of multi-annual plans, both the climate change one and the biodiversity one, we have drawn up some excellent plans. And what's particularly significant about them is that they are multi-annual. So there's no kind of uncertainty from year to year, or at least there shouldn't be. Now with the climate one a couple of years ago, we had to kind of bring it to a head at a budget meeting in order to get it fully resourced. And it looks like we've got the same problem here with the biodiversity one. From our discussions at the forum last year in September, it became clear that what seems to be happening was that where we had a revenue budget need of about $1 million to meet the objectives of the plan, the sum of 400,000 was what was going to end up in the budget that came to us as councillors, and that's what's referred to in the report. And then the capital side of it would be 4.7 million, again, to carry out the actions in the plan, but that 2 million was indicated in the capital programme. And so those figures, as I can see here, haven't changed, and they're now leading us as a forum to be asked, well, which of this significant series of actions do we think should be cut? And to be honest, we don't think any of them should be cut. What we've got as a biodiversity action plan is a model in local government in Ireland. It's got an ambition for nature restoration, which ties really well with the nature restoration plan, which Ireland is going to have to produce under the EU's nature restoration law. So we're fully aligned in terms of our plan, but what we're not aligned with is in terms of the resourcing. And it's not a very large sum of money in the context of the council's budget. So we're finding it hard to understand why this gap can't be filled. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and just thank Councillor Mulville, Councillor Hopkins for bringing forward the motion. Just also as a member of the Biodiversity Forum, I know the members of the Forum are very concerned that the Fingal Biodiversity Action Plan is not adequately resourced. I think the chairperson had communicated on that to the executive last year. It's a very impressive plan, and we had a number of discussions here about it at the council. It sets out 100 actions to halt the loss of biodiversity in Fingal by 2030. But many of those actions currently could not be funded over the lifetime of the plan. Certainly the concern expressed at the Biodiversity Forum was that of 60 actions planned so far, 18 of those had no funding or couldn't be carried out, and that's going to increase as time goes on. So I think there is a biodiversity crisis. I mean, it's worth saying that. I mean, there's the National Biodiversity Action Centre had recorded, I suppose, serious issues for Ireland as elsewhere. Of the species that have been assessed in Ireland, one in every fifth species is threatened with extinction. One in every third species of bee is threatened with extinction, and the conservation status of about 31,000 species known to occur in Ireland, the conservation status of only about 10% has actually been assessed. So nature conservation continues to be chronically underfunded. Fingal, I think, broke the mould with the biodiversity plan, which was ambitious and practical in setting out a series of measures to address the decline of biodiversity, and we need to stand over that plan and ensure that it's fully implemented. I mean, by one estimate of the information that the Biodiversity Forum received, 66% of the plan could not be implemented. So we'll just seek some reassurance on that and hopefully try to get the funding put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so we'll go back to Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members. Yeah, I suppose just in the first instance, just to absolutely commit that the funding is in place and the funding has not been cut. We have a very significant biodiversity team led by Hans Weiser, and there's certainly not on our part. There's no rationale to try and cut the biodiversity budget at all. It's a very significant budget, and my understanding is that the biodiversity officer will be bringing forward a very ambitious plan in 2026 back to the forum, which sets out 29 actions from the biodiversity action plan. That's a combination of projects across the revenue budget and the capital programme budget as well. So in total, the 2.4 million will be spent in 2029. So that programme will be brought back, and hopefully those priority projects will be agreed by yourselves as part of that forum. Together with that, there's also additional funding there from Inland Fisheries Ireland. There's 225,000 has been allocated for the weir removal on the Matt River, and also a further €1 million has been allocated for the feasibility study for the weir removal on the River Liffey, which we're working in close partnership with the other relevant local authorities to bring forward as well. So that funding, and in addition to our own council funding, really, I think it is a very, very ambitious programme for 2026, and we certainly look forward to seeing some of those projects hit the ground and make a real difference.
Okay, so go back to the proposer of the motion, Councillor Hopkins.
Thanks. So what we're saying is that the funding is in place, the funding has not been cut, and that the actions in the plan will be met this year.
Just to clarify, 29 actions will be brought forward for 2026. And then obviously the 100 actions, some of them have been completed, 29 in 2026, and there's a commitment in the capital programme for 2 million over the 2026 to 2028 capital programme. So that's 2 million next year and 2 million the year after that to bring forward more action plans as agreed through the forum. And the 409 that's allocated in the revenue budget is at the discretion of yourselves.
Okay, I'm still not quite clear though, because we will still be asked on the 29th of January to prioritise the plan because we cannot meet the commitments of what we originally agreed. But you're saying that the funding is in place and the funding hasn't been cut. So maybe I'm being completely thick here, but I don't understand what has occurred to make us now not be able to meet the commitments that we had set out. If we haven't cut the funding and the funding is in place, but not the original funding agreed, or has everything become more expensive? Is this an inflationary issue? Do you understand what I'm saying? Am I clear?
Again, just through the Mayor, I suppose the allocation, the funding allocation is the funding allocation, and the projects have to align with that. So that's where the priority list arises from. It's a total budget of 2.4 million. That, including the inland fisheries budget, is what can be delivered in 2026. We don't feel there's anything proposed to be cut. There's 29 actions that can be delivered this year. There'll be more actions that can be delivered the following year. There's a budget in place to continue to roll out those actions. So I'm not sure where the issue of the budget being cut has arisen, because it was never cut. The revenue budget has been 409 for the past number of years, and the 2 million allocation in the capital programme, again, was considered more than adequate to cover the action plan that was agreed by this council.
Okay.
My problem here is that the biodiversity officer who is responsible for implementing the biodiversity action plan is saying that there is not enough funding for us to meet the commitments that we made. That's the problem, and that is something that we agreed here as a council.
Right.
We agreed to do the 100 actions, and now he's saying, well, we don't have enough money to do the 100 actions.
That's not what I'm hearing from him. I'm hearing he'll roll it out over X years and work his way through the list and get there.
Great, if that's the case. So over the 5 years we will do, so all he's asking us to do is, it's not that the funding has been cut, it's just prioritise which ones we're doing year on year. Okay, great, I'll accept the report,
so,
thank you.
What are we doing with this motion then? Are you happy with the report?
Yeah.
Report accepted. Okay,
I'll write to him now, thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Councillor Dean Mulligan. Before I go any further, I want to congratulate Dean Mulligan on getting married last week. I hope we'll all congratulate him, and it's nice to nice to have pleasant news in the chamber. Anyway, so Councillor Dean Mulligan, taking the charge process, if you want to propose, Dean, and then somebody second.
Yep, propose.
Seconded by Councillor, I've forgotten your name, sorry. Fortune.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor. Meant to be on my honeymoon, but for other reasons I'm here. So I'm off work, so that's one thing. Just in terms of the taking charge process, yeah, I do think local resident associations or groups that may be in the process of formally getting themselves registered as a resident association should be involved in taking charge. Many of the members here will be aware of a myriad of new estates being taken in charge, and then a bucket load of issues coming to us as councillors with new estates that have been subsequently taken in charge, that the council didn't necessarily have a role in until they were taken in charge. Whereas if resident associations were established when they were built prior to the taking in charge process, if the community department along with the resident association were members of the PPN, we could, as the report says, have that two-way conversation with the residents as part of taking in charge. Because there's a lot of times, I can even see where I live now, you see the council and the developer out on site looking at different issues, but then it only comes to fruition, the actual issues for the residents on the ground when the estate is taken in charge. And a lot of the stuff from speed ramps to the Dean Moore's designs to different play equipment and different things within estates goes missing or isn't there from the start, because the residents who are directly impacted, sometimes in the estates for 3 and 4 years, prior to and longer prior to taking in charge, who have lived experiences of the issues, and when the estate is subsequently taken in charge, it's that little bit harder for the council to get work done because of the cost factor. Whereas if the residents know on the first instance, you can put the onus on the back on the developer to have the area up to a standard which the residents want, you're going to, of course, have the conversation and issue around what the conditions of the estate are in terms of the building framework and guidelines. But I do think if we have a more thorough and open conversation with residents, it would avoid us having to bring them in here for deputations a year after they're established, or vice versa, and we can have a better taking in charge process that works for everyone, especially with the level of new builds going on. Thank you very much, and appreciate it. Cheers.
Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thank you. I'd like to support Councillor Mulligan's motion. The taking in charge process is incredibly complicated, and a lot of residents that are going through the process, it's their first time. You know, we don't tend to move about an awful lot in Ireland. I think once people get a roof over their heads, they're delighted to have it and they stay put. But it's really complicated. Residents, especially owner-occupied management companies, they really don't understand what the whole taking in charge process entails. And I do think the more communication that Fingal can have with residents, and the more discussions that are held before the taking in charge is finalised, I think the easier the process will be, and the better we will all be for it, both Fingal and residents. So, thank you.
Councillor Breda Hannapy.
I want to support, excuse me, the newlyweds motion. I want to come in here and just really, I want to commend everybody in the community department, because I can just speak from my area in Dublin 15, where they've got in, there's new residents association, they've started up in new bills, old bills, and it is actually working out great, and will be great benefit, as Dean was saying, it'll be great benefit in the future when they are being taken in charge. But even on the ground now at the moment with them, they're working great hand in hand with the operations department. It's working fantastic, and it's a great boost for the areas and for everybody, and really well done to the community development department in Fingal. They're wonderful.
Okay, so we'll go back to who's taking this? Here's Mary, is it yourself? Taking the charge. Roisin.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Mulligan, they assured me you were going to be away. I would get away with it on my first meeting. But, however, thanks for the comments. The taking in charge process, as you all know, is a statutory process in accordance with the Planning Act and the Roads Act, and there are a number of opportunities for consultation. So every estate to be taken in charge does go out for a 6-week consultation period, and then it's brought before yourselves at the ACM for noting before it comes to the full council meeting. In line with the report, we are happy to add the community department to the list of stakeholders so they can send out to any of the residents associations aligned with the PPN so that they have an awareness of what's going on and deal with any correspondence that way.
Okay, so Councillor Mulligan.
Ms. Burke, you're not the only one who's disappointed to be in this, that I'm in this chamber this evening, and I'm also very much disappointed that I have to be here. But I'm only here because I'm in the country, and it would be wrong of me not to turn up for an area I'm elected to represent. Yeah, no, I appreciate the response, and I do think, given the confines of the Act, that it's fair. I think if there is a dialogue there and the community department have a say that at least prior to the 6-week engagement, if there's any feedback from the residents prior to going on public consultation, we might have a better chance of resolving that issue before it goes to consultation, and then it's more difficult to get these things resolved prior to taking over. So yeah, I'm happy with the report. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to, so the report is agreed. We'll go on to number 28 and 29, or 28 first. Councillor Mary McCamley and John Walsh, I understand, is going to propose.
I'll propose, Mayor, yeah.
Okay, I'll second that. Or Councillor Mark Boland, he'll second it. Yeah. And do you want to accept manager's
I'll say
report,
something brief. I'm going to accept the report, but I might speak on it briefly. Okay. Do you want to take the two motions together?
I was just about to suggest that. So Councillor Siobhan Shovlin, would you like to propose, and seconded by Councillor Kieran Dennison. Okay, John Walsh, if you want to go ahead there.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And just to thank Councillor McCamley, who actually submitted the motion at the request of the Irish Cancer Society, and I know Councillor Shovlin did as well. And really just to pay tribute to the Irish Cancer Society for the campaign on this. It was obviously submitted last summer when sunlight was a more urgent issue, and hopefully will be again. It's perhaps a strange time of year to be debating it, but it is a very important issue. And I suppose it's a really request to provide free sunscreen dispensers in public areas. And the case for it is that skin cancer is Ireland's most common cancer. And there's over 11,500 new diagnoses of skin cancer annually. And research by the Irish Cancer Society reports that 7 in 10 people will report that sunscreen is too expensive, and 10% say they don't use it because they can't afford it. So there is an issue there. There's a public health issue with people not taking advantage of sunscreen because they don't have the money. And obviously the benefits of sunscreen needs very little introduction. Free sunscreen would help to ensure equitable access to sunscreen. It would encourage safer behaviour, and it would have the potential to reduce significantly the risk of skin cancer with minimal ongoing cost. And that's particularly important for children or for older people. This has been adopted already by Cork City Council. It was proposed by my colleague, Councillor Peter Horgan, and was initiated last year in 24 with pilot projects in 4 public areas, which were very heavily used and got a lot of positive response from members of the public. So just would commend the motion. Thanks very much.
Okay, I think I'll go, Joan Hopkins is up, but I'm going to go to the proposer of the other motion, then I'll come to Joan Hopkins. Can the system do that? Councillor Siobhan Shovlin.
Yep, thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the report. I know it's quite a while since I submitted this report because I received it probably similar to other councillors from volunteer from the Irish Cancer Society. So I'm just wondering, I'd say the report was probably prepared quite a while ago, and it says that we're going to reach out to Cork County Council to find out more information. I'm just wondering, has that happened in the meantime, or is that something we propose to do if this passes today? I think we have lots of locations that spring to mind for something like this, including some of our beaches on this side of the county or over our end, Porterstown Park, Millennium Park, and really busy locations like that with heavy footfall. I think it would be really worthwhile exercise for Fingal to also get involved in. Thank you.
Okay, and now Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you. In the Baldall Community Hall, we've had one of these for the last couple of years, provided through the Healthy Ireland Sun Smart campaign. But I actually thought it was something to do with the community department as well that had picked community centres to do it. But just to say, from my own experience, it is really, really successful. I thought, you know, kids would be wasting it and blah, blah, whatever. But that is not the case. And they came and provided us with refills every 3 to 6 months or whatever. So it is good and very well received. Thanks.
Okay, so go to management now for reply. Is that Mary? Is that yourself?
Yeah, I think particularly during times of hot weather, we do need to, I mean, we're always sending out messages to the public with regards to parking and that kind of stuff during times of hot weather, particularly going to the beaches. I think we need to work with the campaign and promote the High Sun Smart brand through the HSE. Now, delivering it out, I have no provision in the budget to put in sunscreen dispensers. At the moment, I have had a quick conversation with Cork County Council. They've had a few issues because they are in the public realm, you know, in a community centre. They're inside and they're supervised. So there's also can be an issue with if somebody is allergic to the particular cream that's in the dispenser. We do have sunscreen. The lifeguards do have sunscreen, and if people want sunscreen, we do supply it to them. But I think getting the message out to people when they're going to the beach that they need to bring sunscreen with them. When they're out in public, they need to bring sunscreen with them. So I think Fingal County Council supporting the High Sun Smart brand and getting that message out through the HSE. I've just had a brief conversation with Cork. I have to get back to them, so I will do that.
Okay, well, I don't know. We'll go back to the proposals, but maybe we need another report after more information is received. And I met Rush, St. Joseph's School Rush at the Young Scientist exhibition. Had a great little project measuring the UV light and the different clouds that are up there, and there's clouds in the sky and they're not all the same, and the UV light can be stronger, you know, depending on what type of cloud cover there is. And it was a very interesting project which would relate to this and the need for sunscreen protection. There are generic sunscreen creams out there that could be sourced that are not mad expensive. But we'll go back to the proposals of the motion. Do you accept the report? And
Mayor, can I just come back in?
Yeah.
I had thought of it. I knew there was something and I couldn't remember it. We might look at providing them in the public toilets.
Okay,
Might be something we could look at.
To start the process.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
try it in some of the public toilets.
On Skerry's Beach. Wonderful.
At the beaches. At Skerry's Beach.
Sorry. Anyway,
Okay.
okay, go back to the proposals, the motions. Is John Lodge and Councillor Shovlin.
Happy to accept the report, particularly, and thanks to Ms. Daly for the response. No, just if Mary, if you come back to us, maybe come back to myself and Councillor Shovlin on it, and see if we could try to progress it so that it's not lost. You know, just a pilot project wherever you think it appropriate would be great. Yeah.
Councillor Shovlin.
Yeah, just similar to what Councillor Walsh said, just if you keep in touch with us about it, and maybe somewhere in Dublin 15 could be considered as well. Thanks.
Great, so reports accepted. Agreed, each motion, report accepted, 28 and 29, correct? Is that right? Yes? Yeah, thank you. So we'll go on to the next one then. Councillor Malachy Quinn, signage at skate parks proposed by Councillor Quinn, I presume, seconded by Angela Donnelly.
motion on foot of increasing incidence of e-scooter use within our skateboard or skate parks, acknowledging the response by the motion. Just interesting, just in the reports from today's meeting, there's a response back from the Minister for Justice, which highlighted in 2023 that there was 24 incidents of e-scooters, and in 2024 there was 91. It's a very interesting figure, almost, well, more than tripled, almost 4 times as much. Our skate parks are keenly used by our younger generation and are a great addition to our community facilities. The misuse of e-scooters are a much broader issue, which recently has been a point of focus of our local community guards in Balbriggan, where random checkpoints were set up to examine compliance. There is a need for better regulation, and without a doubt I acknowledge that, required to tackle the increase in misuse. But only last month, the College of Physicians report found that the leading cause of traumatic brain injuries in children are collisions involving the use of e-scooters. Dr. Erin Gill from the College of Physicians said that they are looking for more vigilance from parents and a stricter enforcement of restrictions. So what can we do as a council to put restrictions in place on the misuse of e-scooters? I think the installation of signage at our skateboard parks and parks, as well as consideration of a possible e-scooter campaign within our libraries and to stretch out to our schools, could be beneficial in highlighting this issue. I'm not against e-scooters, I'm far from it, because there's plenty of people that live in the town I live in that use their e-scooters to get to work locally, and we have to encourage that. But there is a small percentage of people that are misusing their e-scooters and are using it in our public parks and skateboard parks and on our main streets. That's up to the guards to enforce in regards to our main streets. But in regards to our public parks and our skateboard parks, there is an opportunity for the council to acknowledge that and for signage to be put in place. So I welcome the report. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thanks. I'd just like to support Councillor Quinn, and just to add that the Road Safety Authority are urging action, highlighting the need for better enforcement and awareness on the back of the report about the traumatic brain injuries that the scooters are causing, especially in our children. So I think increased signage in our skate parks, I think, is a very modest task. So I'd be supporting the motion. Thanks.
Okay, did I hear correctly? Is the report accepted? Is that what you said? Report accepted, that okay? Agreed. Okay, so we go on then to number 31, which is Councillor Angela Donnelly, funding for energy efficient retrofitting programme proposed by Councillor Donnelly, seconded by Councillor Breda Hannafy.
Thank you. Living in warm, energy efficient and healthy homes should no longer be a luxury that only the privileged few can afford. If you live in social housing, you don't get to choose your boiler, you don't get to choose your insulation level or your windows, but you do get to pay the bills. The Energy Efficiency Retrofitting Programme aims to significantly upgrade the energy performance of social housing stock to a B2 or equivalent building energy rating standard as part of a national strategy to retrofit homes by 2030. The programme involves deep retrofitting of homes with measures such as improved insulation, windows and heat pump installations, funded by the Department of Social Housing and supported by large energy suppliers under the Energy Efficiency Obligation Scheme. The goal is to create warmer, more comfortable homes, reduce energy costs and significantly decrease the building sector's carbon emissions. Yet to date we have received funding for approximately 90 homes a year. In 2025 we received just over 3 million for 94 homes. We retrofitted 119 homes, which is great, but we have 3,451 social homes owned by Fingal in Dublin 15 alone. The retrofitting of 119 homes for the entirety of Fingal with funding for 94 homes is a drop in the ocean. A lot of our social housing stock has a much lower energy rating, with residents unable to heat their homes appropriately. This motion has been on the agenda since last October, and I welcome the increased funding for 2026 of 55%. But if we're going to meet our national climate targets and deliver much needed regeneration to social housing, we need to request increased and multi-annual funding for the local authority energy efficiency retrofitting programme.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Malachy Quinn.
Yeah, I'd like to support the motion, and just just to highlight just a couple of issues in regards to retrofitting and work taking place by the council. I just look for clarification on the procedures after the work has taken place in regards to if there is a clerk of works that inspects the work, because I have come across issues where I can only say that the window frames have been butchered by the company that has come in, and when you go and chase the companies to amend that and to fix that, they're very reluctant to do it. It's also the use of the Visman boilers. I understand that there is a 6-week waiting list for the replacement parts for the boiler, the Visman boilers in particular, that come from Germany. But I think it's important that we do have an increase in funding for retrofitting, but we also need to be circumspect on what actual equipment we're using, what boilers we're using, if there's a 6-week waiting list for boilers to come from Germany. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor David Healy.
And I'd like to thank Councillor Donnelly for putting it on the motion, and the Chief Exec for the report. One aspect which I think the report has missed highlighting is the work that's been done by the Council in kind of an integrated fashion, and certainly Strand Mill in Portmarnock is the one I'm most aware of, where we've gone in and we've upgraded our own houses, the ones where we're the landlord, and then we've gone to the neighbours, particularly houses which were former local authority houses, but are now private, and we've asked them, do you want to join in? Do you want the same contractors to do the same work? And it's had a good take-up, and I think that's a really significant model, because so many of our housing areas are mixed between council and owned and private. And of course that does highlight one other aspect, which is the one sector of the housing market where nothing is happening in retrofit terms is the private rented sector, because there's a split incentive. The landlord would pay for the retrofit, but the tenants would be the people who would get the benefit, and that split benefit means that the private rented sector now has the worst thermal performance in the unit. It's got the greatest in the housing sector, and it's got the greatest energy poverty. So I think that's something which we need to be pushing for at a national level to change. But in terms of what we're doing, I think we should be continuing to expand that kind of a project of working out locally from our own houses and dealing with the neighbours as well. Thanks very much.
Okay, I too would like to support the motion. You've heard me use the phrase all cold and lonely before, particularly our social housing tenants who might be pensioners and whatever, and in units that are very hard to heat, that are not the tenants, but that the houses are very old. I think that's very important that we go at this in a more aggressive manner, and we need funding from government. And to date, whether it'll keep going or not, we seem to be taking in a lot of money on corporation tax, and I welcome the motion, because if you don't ask, you don't get, and this goes to the Minister, I presume, to request more funding, and I support the motion. I don't know if you want to agree the report or go to the Manager, Angela Donnelly. Do you want to agree your motion?
I think to get a letter sent, the motion needs to be agreed, so I'm happy.
Is the motion agreed? To request more funding? Thank you. Okay, motion agreed. Thank you. Sorry, David Healy is number 32. 30 km/h per speed limit proposed by Councillor Healy. Seconded by Councillor John Walsh.
Proposed, and obviously this motion has been down for a while. It went down as soon as we started to get an indication that the government was effectively abandoning the previous plan of changing the default urban speed limit from 50 to 30, and pretty much reversing going from a simple change which they were going to carry out to providing that we were going to be doing the detailed work. Since then, they have finally in October come along with their, as the report says, their guidelines, and we were waiting for the report when it was built. When it was originally written, I think, was referring to guidelines are anticipated. It's been updated to say that they've been issued, and the guidelines in particular, I suppose my question at this stage, and assuming the motion is agreed because it's consistent with the national policy, my question at this stage is what our timeline is. The next deadline in the government's timescale is that they want a report from all the councils by the 25th of February 2026 to indicate how many poles and signs we think we'll need. So I assume that at that stage we need to have a draft outline of the areas and so on to which it will apply. And then obviously this is a process involving public consultation, so it'll be coming to the area committees and going out to the public. But I wonder at this stage, could we get the timeline that we're expecting to follow? Will we meet that 25th of February deadline, and what are the other steps what are the other dates that we anticipate? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Yeah, I just want to thank David for raising this issue and to support him. Government told us they'd leave no stone unturned trying to reduce the number of fatalities on Irish roads, and the trend has gone one way and it's gone the direction we don't want to. We've seen an increase year on year. I think it was 170 last year, and it's 100, and it was 190 people, families lost loved ones last year. So it's not good enough that we're taking so long to do this. We should have just gone ahead with the process that we were promised, because apart from anything else, we know the statistics around if somebody is, you're less likely to hit somebody if you're going at 30 kilometres an hour. And it's staggering the difference between 30 and 40, 30 and 50 in terms of if you do actually hit somebody, whether it's going to mean something serious or life-threatening or indeed death. So, and in addition to I don't have the numbers here, but in addition to the 190 people who lost their lives last year, there are significant numbers of people who have head injuries, life-altering injuries, just because they went out, walking or on their bike or in another car, and other people chose not to do the speed limit, or they were doing speed limits that are just not suitable for the roads. So I would, as David asked, just be very interested to know when Fingal County Council are going to get to the next phase of this and finally bring some sense onto our roads. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor John Watch.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Healy as well for bringing forward this motion. I have a similar one at our area committee in Dublin 15. And I thought what the government initially outlined was very sensible. There was a three-phase process. There were clear deadlines and clear processes for each. And the second phase was unambiguous, that it involved the reduction of urban speed limits, which is right. And then it was replaced by this kind of very fragmented, painfully slow and protracted process, which has already been delayed by more than 6 months, where effectively it was delegated, a circular was issued quite late, and the speed limit changes were then to be implemented by local authorities through, as the report says, special speed limit bylaws, rather than changing the default limits. I suppose the practical effect that has had, it has delayed decisions on traffic calming. And certainly other councillors may be in a similar position. I'd been approached by residents in a number of areas in Dublin 15 to request traffic surveys to see whether traffic calming was merited. One of those was the Clonsilla Road, which is quite close to Blanchetown Village, kind of major artery in Dublin 15, very busy. Parts of that road are very dangerous. And like, quite rightly, I think the traffic engineers took the view that they couldn't do a traffic survey in advance of this process because they'd simply have to do it again if the speed limit was reduced. So really, no pun intended, the government took a U-turn on this, and it has substantially delayed the process. And that has very real consequences. For people who may be involved in accidents, or for residents whose case for traffic calming is delayed. So I would be keen to find out when the process will start, and kind of what are the details of the process, and how quickly it might be completed.
Okay, Councillor Joe Newman.
Thanks, Mary. I just want to support the motion. The local area where I live in River Valley, we have a distributor road which is a 50 km/h, and the streets off that, the roads off that are 30. So as soon as possible, if we could get that down to 30, it would be much appreciated. We've quite a number of kids in the local schools up there, and I know there are some traffic calms. There is safe route to schools initiative planned, but the distributor road buses, I think if you were to put a speed reader up there, you'd say they're hitting the 50 or more. But we have some small ramps up there which the buses ignore because it's between the wheels. And I was told at the time, well, we can't really put in, big ramps, but yet I can go over to Malahide on the 102, and we were hitting ramps in quite a number of occasions. It wasn't ideal, travelling by bus, it wouldn't encourage it, but certainly I would hope to see this implemented as soon as possible, and some measure of enforcement, rotational enforcement, because they just changed the signs without something to back it up is not really going to do much. Thanks.
Okay, I too would like to support the motion and welcome the motion, even though it's sitting there a while. I kind of get the bit of reverting back to us as councillors via the normal process, maybe to iron out any quirks that might arise. Myself and Councillor Owen O'Brien put it into the development plan separately via separate motions that we have 30 km per hour in, I suppose, I don't know what exactly, suitable towns and villages and the core or whatever. I'm not sure what it was exactly where it works. And I would certainly welcome it in Skerries. And the idea being that 30 km would obviate the need for pedestrian crossings, that you could cross the road safely without wondering is a speeding car coming at you in your own town and village. So it's a great idea. I note the letter landed on the 16th of October, it's nearly 3 months ago, and there's a deadline, according to David Healy there, of the 25th of February to reply to the department. Are we going to do the whole of Fingal? Is that the plan? Like we did the 60 or 80 to 60 km per hour, rather than town by town? Is it going to happen like over a month, all the towns together? And how will the process work? Is it being brought back to us in area committees? And well, it would be if it's going through the normal change the speed limit process. It'll come back to us all in area committee. I welcome that. Anyway, go back to Mary T. Daly for whatever answers she can give us. Thank you.
Just for clarification, the deadline of the 28th of February is the deadline for us to go back with regards to the department, with regards to what infrastructure we need, signposts, etc. on that. So just giving you an update on it, just for the members that might know, originally the intention at Department of Transport was it would be a default 30 kph, but that turned out that it would require a change in legislation. So actually I think being a special speed limit for 30 kph is actually going to be quicker. So the deadline we have is to have it in place is the 31st of March 2027. The area engineers in each area are currently, there's quite a lot of work involved in it, and the area engineers are looking at the speed limits for the villages in all the urban areas for each of their areas. That will be going to the same process as with the bylaws. Goes to the SPC, Public Realm SPC, goes to the area committees, it goes out on public consultation because it's a reserve function of the council. They are special speed limits, so that requires a resolution of the full council. Whereas the 80 to 60 was a default speed limit, and that doesn't require the approval of the council. It's nationally set at a default speed limit. But the 30 kph in the villages is a special speed limit, and it does require it's a reserve function of the council. Go out in public display, it'll come back then, and we'll be bringing it back to the area committees, back to the SPC, and then to full council. So work, I can assure you, work is underway. All of the traffic engineers are currently putting together the return for the department on the 28th of February. But the deadline is March 2027. We'd hope to have it done earlier, but that's the process that we have to go through. That's the process or the consultation that we do that you require, and we intend to keep with those deadlines.
Okay, back to Councillor Healy. Is the report accepted?
I would be grateful for, I appreciate it if Ms Daly doesn't have it at the moment, but an indicative timeline at some stage of, when, for example, we expect to have the draft available for us to consider and when we might put it on public display, and just those timelines. But if she doesn't have them to hand, obviously, if they could be sent on, it'll certainly be useful for us considering it for the area committee. Okay. And hopefully we can agree the motion, Chair. Thanks very much.
Okay, maybe that could be circulated later. So is the report accepted? Councillor Healy, yes.
Agree the motion. The motion is to
Agree
initiate
the motion,
the process.
yeah. Okay, is motion agreed? Agreed. Number 33, Councillor Luke Corkery, parking regulations near schools, proposed by Councillor Corkery, seconded by Councillor O'Leary.
Thanks, Mayor. It's quite a while since I put this one down, so given that we passed the new parking bylaws, I'm happy to accept the response on that one. Thanks.
Okay, report accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next motion, Councillor DJ Kelly or Dara Kelly is not here, so we defer that to the next meeting. Roll on then to 35, Councillor J. Walsh, pet ownership in social and affordable housing, proposed by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Mark Boland. Councillor Mark Boland.
Yeah, proposed. Thanks, Mayor. Didn't expect to reach this one, but we're making great progress. So I just decided to put this down really on foot of representations I got from a number of council tenants, and also just some discussion with Dogs Trust, which members will know is Ireland's largest dog welfare charity. And I suppose really the purpose of the motion is really twofold. Is firstly to find out, are there any guidelines for approved housing bodies operating in Fingal in respect of pet ownership across social and affordable housing? And secondly, if those guidelines don't exist, what could be done to try and encourage the establishment of cohesive guidelines that would alleviate the problem of pet surrenders, and just would welcome the fact that the Government Housing Action Plan includes steps, and I think this is referenced actually in the report. It does include steps to end the blanket bans on pets in tenancy arrangements. Like far too often, in tenancy arrangements, there is a blanket ban on any ownership of pets. And that has caused serious problems for renters. And one of the main reasons that people contact Dogs Trust to give up their dog or surrender the dog is that they have to move to a new home that won't be able to accommodate the pet. And in 2025 alone, Dogs Trust received more than one call or email every single day, and 431 in total, from people who were very upset to learn they couldn't bring their dog with them to their new home. And that's an increase of over 100% over the previous past 5 years. And that trend has continued. Many families are still unable to find pet-friendly accommodation. To give just one example, fewer than 1 in 10 rental listings on daft.ie allow pets. So I'm pleased that some progress is being made. I'm not a dog owner myself. I have several close friends and relatives who are, but I think for people who are dog owners, that a dog is much more than simply a pet. They are, they're seen as really a member of the family. And it can be very upsetting, particularly for an older person or a person living on their own, if they have to give up the dog on moving into their new home. A petition was put forward by Dogs Trust, which over 20,000 people supported earlier this year. And I think the government are looking at approved housing body properties. So I thought it was timely to bring forward this motion, and just look forward to any comments that the executive or other members may have on it. Thanks.
Okay, I note that it's kind of a positive report there. Do you want me to go to the Chief Executive for a response? Or do you want to have a motion approved or accept the report?
Happy to hear from the Chief Executive.
Okay, all Carl.
Thank you. As Councillor Walsh has said, it is included in the new government's housing action plan to progress new measures to make blanket bans on pets unacceptable, and we will work then with whatever comes out of that process to make sure that that's adopted across both our own social housing and across the approved housing bodies that operate in Fingal. We'd be very conscious of the positive benefits that pet ownership does bring to a lot of people. We'd also be very conscious that that has to not impinge unduly on the people who live adjacent or in the same development as those pets, and that can create challenges that will be, managed and dealt with as these new guidelines come on stream.
Okay, so Councillor Walsh, do you want to put your motion? Motion agreed.
Yeah, just to thank Mr. Carroll for the report. And I think, I think the report and the motion are broadly in line, so I might agree the motion if that's okay.
Yeah, is the motion agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Go on to Councillor B. Hannafy, Garda vetting procedure for housing applicants, proposed by Councillor Hannafy, I assume, and seconded by Councillor Angela Donnelly.
Thank you. No, I want to note, I note the report accepted, but this was put in months and months ago. It goes back to early last year. There was two families, and there was probably other councillors are dealing with more, that they were allocated their house, couldn't get the keys till they were Garda vetted, and that took months and months. And I know it's no fault of the councillors, they're waiting on the guards, and at the time it was, what can the council do to speed up the Garda vetting? But it's not only regards social housing for Garda vetting, it's other jobs, and we're here now with TUSL at the moment. It's just, whatever the system is with Garda vetting, it's very slow, but thank you for getting it now, and those people, they eventually got their keys and they were able to move into their house. So all's good, so thanks for the report, Paul.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I'm accepting the report.
Accept the report.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then we go to yes? Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Councillor Newman.
Yeah, I just want to support the motion. I had an issue with a lady who is a council tenant looking to be transferred, relocated to another place, but the Garda vetting was like that. It was taking months to actually for somebody to carry out the Garda vetting. And I was just wondering why, a council tenant that's already there as a council tenant should, move into improved housing body would need to have further Garda vetting, but there is a major problem with Garda vetting with regards to the housing there. Thank you.
Okay, so the report was agreed. So we go on to the next one. It's number 37, Councillor Mark Boland, creche or childcare facilities in all Part 8 housing developments, proposed by Councillor Mark Boland, seconded by Councillor John Walsh. Councillor Boland. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for the detailed response here as well. I wanted to bring this motion forward today because I think we have a responsibility here as a council to ensure that when we approve new housing, we also deliver community infrastructure such as creches that make those homes a viable place to live. What I want to be is very clear that childcare is not a luxury. It is an essential infrastructure that is needed in all new developments. So the motion I'm putting forward here is straightforward. It asks that where a Part 8 housing development proposes a creche or a childcare facility, it becomes a condition of planning that the facility must be delivered and operational with the qualified operator secured before people move in and occupy the residential units. What this motion ensures is that the creches are built not after phase 1 or phase 2, not when the developer gets around to it, and they're not left as a future provision. And certainly they're not left as vacant zone plots built by, but are delivered in tandem with homes the way it should be. Now, one of the reasons that I bring forward this motion is because of what has happened in my own area in Lusk. We currently have 3 separate housing developments in Lusk where a creche was promised, but all 3 creche sites are vacant and undeveloped years later. Not one creche was built, not one childcare place was created, not one family in Lusk benefited. And as a result, Lusk, one of the fastest growing towns in Fingal, is now experiencing a childcare crisis. Parents are on waiting lists before their child is even born. Families are forced to travel to Swords, Rush, Donabate, Balbriggan and further afield, anywhere that they can find the space. So this is why this motion is important. The motion supports parents, particularly working parents, single parents and families without cars who cannot simply drive 40 or 50 minutes away to find a childcare place. I do not see why we cannot have these creche sites built and conditioned that they should be operational. It would be very easy to fill them. Childcare facilities act as an anchor within new neighbourhoods. They support footfall, they support community connection and they support local services. We all know the pattern. Some developers may build a house, sell them, move on, and the community facilities fall off the priority list. This motion puts that practice to an end. And colleagues, let me say this. This is not anti-development. It's not creating barriers for creches. This is about ensuring that development is responsible, balanced and people-centred. Let us lead as a council. Let us be proactive in creating childcare infrastructure that families so badly need in our county, and let us grow our communities. I urge that people can support this motion. Gurmila Mahagut.
Councillor Cahill Haughey.
Yeah, just want to support the motion, and it is a big problem. You know, people choose to move into an estate because they see that it's a planning condition that a creche gets built, and often a creche does get built, to be fair, but they sit empty because providers aren't moving into them. So I accept the part in the report where it says it wouldn't be possible to not allow people to move in until the creche gets filled, because that could lead to houses lying empty for months, which is not what we want either. But there's something going wrong when creche providers aren't choosing to move in. We need to figure out why that is. Are they being built to a certain specification or a size? But people are crying out for childcare places, so to have so many empty creches sitting in all these new estates is very frustrating for people. So I'd like to support the motion. Thanks.
Councillor Joe Newman.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just somewhat support the motion. Just like to hear what the reply from the manager is. It's just that a number of years ago, I think Mr. McLeish will recall that, you know, the Miller's Glen area, there was a serious issue up there. From the time of the development start, plans going out, we had identified sites, a number of different sites, 4, 5, 6 sites for creches. And then in time, as development grew, there was nothing done about the sites, and they've ended up, I think, probably will be utilised for housing. But it was like, to me, it was a marketing strategy from the developer to say, we're going to build X number of houses, here's where our creches are going to be. But in the end of the day, that's not exactly what happened. Now, there's a couple of creches up there, and it's long and hard road for people to take it on board. And I suppose with the change in regulations, smaller creches can't really survive. But it was just, that's what I felt was happening there, and I just want to highlight that. Thanks.
Councillor John Smith.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to support the motion. It's really timely. I'm aware of the number, the three out. I think one out in Lust that has been 20 years vacant, and other councils are referred to the almost being held to ransom, which happened up in Miller's Glen when it came to houses not being released. The sites are still vacant in Miller's Glen. This goes back to a fallacy within the planning legislation that the sites aren't big enough to be commercially viable. And in that instance, rather than them lying there vacant for years, either the council or central government need to step in, purchase these, operate them potentially at a loss, because the need is completely there and it hasn't just disappeared. There's a worrying trend emerging. I think I've lodged 3 observations in the last 6 months of other planning applications where they're trying to remove this. We're effectively asking, I think there's one in Donabate, one in Malahide, trying to ask for the requirement to be waived, which is ridiculous. We have scenarios, I've read other applications around Swords where they're quoting childcare facilities in Blanchardstown and Ongar as being relevant to people living in Swords, even just by Swords' own demographic or geographical makeup. Those north of the River Valley are often not applicable or can't be utilised by people living south of the River Valley. So it just doesn't make sense, and I really thank the council for bringing this forward, and I would love to see a much greater debate and a lot more effort put into this, because it is something that I know myself with 2 young children. There's a desperate demand out there, and there's almost like wars coming to the really good facilities where families are desperate for their children to get the best education and start in life, and the facilities just simply aren't there. Thank you.
Councillor Breda Hanafi.
Thank you, and I want to support the motion, but I'm going to be very cheeky here and bring in that I think we have to include purpose-built youth facilities in upcoming, and we had a great discussion here a couple of months ago regarding that, but to include purpose-built youth facilities. If we're looking for, after the little ones we have to look after are youth. Thank you.
Councillor Tony Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. And I think that this could have unintended consequences if it's passed, and I'd like to hear the management's view on that. And where I'm going with this is, if we are to stitch in a condition on a planning application that forces the developer to have to comply with something that is really outside of his control, when you look at childcare being a separate industry and a separate entity, and there is issues with regard to providers out there finding themselves in a position to take up an opportunity when you have planning compliance, licensing, inspections, Garda vetting, and even recently Garda vetting passed over to TUSLA, causing some issues with regard to timely delivery of the licenses for some of the childcare providers. So what I'm saying is there's a myriad of elements pertaining to delivery of a childcare facility. I've spoken to some childcare providers recently, and they're telling me that the biggest demand is not in the creche area, it's actually in the after school. So it's when both parents are working, trying to pay a mortgage, that after 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock up until 5 or 6 that they need that support. I would think that we need to look at it from a national perspective, because it is a major concern. It is causing problems with regard to how people can actually live the lifestyle where they actually both have to work and have a family. And sometimes people are making a decision maybe not to have a family as a consequence of not having the support that should be there for them. So I think that there should be more financial support put into the industry in order to allow the businesses take up the opportunity that's made available by developers, and they'll only build them if they have an end user. They're not going to build and invest in a building if they don't have a guaranteed assurance that someone's going to take it up and use it. So I think that there is somewhere within that gap an opportunity for more financial support by way of grants, etc., and incentives financially in order to make the creche and childcare provision more accessible and more easily to set up. Thank you.
Okay, can I propose to extend the meeting to finish this motion? I've 4 more speakers, and I want to say a few words as well, and we've 5 more speakers, and then want to hear from the manager. So can we extend the meeting by 10 minutes or so to finish this? Agreed. Thank you. Now we go on to Councillor Owen O'Brien.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, look, really good discussion, but I just want to draw people's attention to kind of, I think, a critical line in the Chief Executive's report there, because this motion specifically relates to Part 8, our own housing schemes. Okay, so in the report it states it would be untenable for Fingal County Council to implement occupancy restrictions in new Part 8 social housing projects based on the operation of a creche, in particular that the creche should be fully operational prior to homes being occupied. Such a provision could potentially result in completed social houses and apartments lying vacant should there be delays in a childcare service provider commencing operations. That's the nub of the issue here in terms of the way the motion is worded, or what the motion calls for. If we take a new build estate, such as like when I moved into the estate I live in, it was a new build. The creche facility was delivered in tandem with the development. If it's a full new build estate, most of the kids who are going to use that creche are likely to be living in and around that estate. So if we have a restriction such as this, you know, it becomes a chicken and egg scenario. If the policy of the council becomes that we can't start allocating social homes in particular estates without that creche being a fully operational creche, my understanding of that would be one that is near enough, you know, 90% occupancy in terms of the number of kids. So this is very, sorry, Councillor Ryan, I'm not sure if you're directing that at me, but it's quite distracting when I'm making my point.
Come on, let him speak. Okay, go ahead, Councillor O'Brien.
Look, what I'm saying is, in terms of private developments where developers haven't fulfilled their obligations in terms of the creche provision, absolutely our enforcement section should be going after the Mayor. But this is, and I'm interested to hear Mr. Carroll's view on it, But that line in the report is critical in terms of whether this motion should be passed or not. Thanks,
Okay.
Mayor.
Time, thanks. Okay, Councillor Karina Johnson.
Actually, just in relation to the Part 8, Part 8 is council-owned land owned by the taxpayer. I think it's really important actually that creches are provided actually from the outset in council-owned land. I think, look, from my perspective, I live right beside Balmoston and Bliss Park. I've had 3 texts today from people who've moved into their homes in Bliss Park, which is fantastic news. They've moved into their homes. They're asking me now, when is the creche going to open? So I think it's really, really important. This is a good debate, but nationally this issue has to be resolved at that level. For me personally, I believe that all creches on Part 8 council-owned lands should actually be community non-for-profit creches, and that's another day's work, but that is my view, and that's really what needs to happen. So I really believe this is a very good motion, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to ensure that creches are provided from the outset at the very beginning, so that parents and families that have moved into Bliss Park before Christmas, who are contacting me today, know that they're going to be able to find and source a creche place locally for their children. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Joan Hopkins.
Thanks. Look, all sorts of promises were made pre-election about what we were going to do about the childcare crisis, and I think we all agree here that something has to change and something within the planning legislation. But I agree with Karina there. One of the worst places when I was running for election around the Donabate area, stressed out parents. They're stressed out, and I've said this a dozen times before in this chamber, stressed out from the minute they find out they're pregnant, which should be such a joyful time, because they're already worried about getting their child into a creche. They spend their entire maternity leave trying to chase down creches. It's absolutely not fair. And I know Jimmy Guerin will give out to me for saying this, but it is generally women who are crying to me about this. I know it's the mammies and the daddies, but women do hold a burden, and they're the ones that are having to decide, am I going to give up my job? What am I going to do? So the stress levels we're putting on people is just not fair. We have the lowest level of community childcare in the country in Fingal. So if we're talking about Part 8, we're talking about our own council houses, then we should be making provision for community childcare there and not relying on the private sector. When it comes to planning legislation and the private sector, we are not building or insisting that the buildings are big enough to be viable. I'm hearing this all the time from creche operators. They, if it's less than 22 children, they can't make money. They're businesses, they need to make money. The issue of enforcement is a really, really serious one. I've raised a number of issues around creches that have been, or not creches, but actual buildings that were assigned for creches that are in housing estates for absolute decades. The kids don't, the kids are all grown up at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ted Leddy.
Thanks, Chair. I've always been a little bit unsure about how this actually works in a practical sense, and I have inquired about it recently. I mean, if you have a developer who's required to provide a childcare facility, what exactly does that mean? Do they just have to provide the premises and then put it out for bids, or if they know somebody, or do they have to go into business with the childcare provider themselves? But either way, I could envisage many situations that would cause delays, and I would have sympathy with Councillor O'Brien's contribution there. You don't want a situation that the law of unintended consequences, that it ends up causing very significant delays. But I'd like to just know from management about how smoothly this happens, because I've been contacted by childcare providers who want to, who want to open a place in a new LAP, for example. But I'm not even sure if there's a standard bidding process for that, or how it works. And I think that is important in this context.
Councillor John Walsh.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Mayor. I think this is an excellent motion, and it's a really useful and important discussion. And unfortunately, I think it's widely recognised that there's a crisis in childcare provision, and one of the factors contributing to that is that we have this provision in planning, which in many cases has become a dead letter. where there is a requirement to provide a creche, a childcare facility, and it's either delayed indefinitely or it never happens. And there's quite a lot of evidence, and this is on the public record in the Irish Times and elsewhere, that efforts have been made, not by all, but by some developers, to actively undermine this provision and to come back and look for for a change of use, to come back and look for the creche, the building for the creche to be changed to housing. An example in my own area was in Bracken Park, where 2 3-storey buildings were earmarked for childcare in a development of 147 homes, were eventually turned into houses. And I could name at least 3 other developments in Dublin 15 where childcare developments are required by childcare facilities are required by planning and haven't been provided years after housing has been built. So I think that's a fundamental problem, and I think we agree on enforcement. In terms of, I wouldn't agree. I think 1 or 2 people said this is primarily an after-school problem. I don't think that's true. I think it's a problem at all levels, at preschool, after school, and for children of all ages. And in terms of the Part 8, obviously the Part 8 is where the council has the most direct control. And I think there's really a fundamental problem. If in council-approved housing that we have approved as councillors, we can't guarantee that a childcare service, a childcare provision is delivered. And I think it's a basic expectation that we should do that. And that's why this motion is important. And I don't think it will be a problem. I don't think the occupancy issue will arise, because I think there are not-for-profit providers that are crying out to do this. Little Learners is one example. I've been contacted by them. So we have only 6% community childcare provision in Fingal, and we can certainly increase that by allocating on Part 8 developments to public or not-for-profit childcare providers. So I would support the motion.
So, Councillor Kieran Dennison.
Thank you, Mayor, and I won't repeat what other people have said, but I certainly echo the sentiments of my colleagues on this. And I know that my own colleague in Dublin West, Councillor Deputy Emer Curry, former councillor here, has done a lot of work on this. And, you know, of all the places we should be getting childcare right, it should be in our Part 8 developments. And, you know, I'm looking at developments like Churchfield, where we are developing a creche, with great interest to see what is going to happen there, because I think it's essential that we get the right childcare facility there. My problem, as some others have said with this motion, is the way it's worded. And, you know, to have a creche fully operational, I ask myself, especially in a new development, where are the children going to come from? Because we want the creche operational before the houses are occupied. So I think there's as some others have said, there's an issue of a chicken and egg here, or perhaps an egg and an egg.
Okay, and I'll just say a few words. I'm glad Councillor Dennison referred to Emer Curry's proposals, which is that, well, where will I start in this? Minister Foley, there was a statement in the Independent around Christmas time, 27th after, that a memo will be brought to Cabinet proposing that large buildings that cater for more than 100 children, and when you hear that figure, it's actually double, because there's 2 shifts or 2 sittings of children, shall we say, will be brought to Cabinet to purchase buildings and have them for creches. This motion only refers to Part 8, and everyone's been talking about the private developer. And there's an issue there, and I welcome the motion. I think it's great. Thank you for putting it down. But we have to be realistic and deal with the facts. And what is the problem? The problem is that we have regulations in our planning, development plan or whatever, that triggers creche requirements, but they're not realistic, and it's not happening because you're all talking about it. The model's broken. So what do I think? Well, for the last 4 years I've been writing the government asking them to set up a fund to construct creches and go and borrow the money and build them. That's my view on it. What's Emer Curry calling for? Emer Curry is calling for the broken model that we have, where the developer can't make it happen, that the state step in and buy the creche, and that'll be built like a Part 5, and we own it. And that sounds very sensible to me. And then the problem drops in the lap of the government or the council here to go and find an operator to make it work. There is an issue with viability. Having small creches all around the place doesn't work. Joe Newman referred to it over there. It may or may not work. You can point to different things. Part 8, I think we've 2. Aoife Sheridan is dealing with 2. Fingal County Council, which I welcome. I think there's one in Donabate or Ballymastone, or Paul Mulville might tell me there. We have one out, or we're doing one in Ballymastone or somewhere around there. It's a council development, it's Part 8 development, it's creche. We're building the creche, we have to get an operator. I do like the idea of having the community creches. There is an issue there. I have been lobbied. We are the lowest, if not the lowest now, we're low. I can't remember the percentages, but we're way down there and should be higher. So the motion refers to, there is unintended consequences. I'm going to go to Paul Carroll or whoever's taking this, that if we have to wait for the creche to be occupied, will it happen? I don't know. Anyway, it relates to Part 8. It does not deal with the big issue, which is all these houses are going to be built out there. It's not addressing that. And we might need another motion for that. But the government are making a move on it. They're going to buy. I don't think they're going to do enough. We need to buy more. We need to do more. I like the idea of Part 5. You step in. If you can't make it work, well, whoever the builder is, the government buys it and makes it happen. But they're going to have to get the operator. I don't know if that's... They'll have to give the operator, how to put it, good terms to make it happen. Go over to Paul Carroll. Paul, are you taking this one? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all the viewpoints expressed. I suppose the first thing to say is that a lot of the discussion centred around creche developments and private developments, which this motion doesn't refer to. In reference to the Part 8 developments, so our developments on our own lands, we have a number of creches under construction in Churchfields, in Bilisk Park, in Donabate, and we will have one in Moortown as well. So I think from that point of view, we haven't, you could almost be led to believe that this is a recurring theme in Part 8, that we don't get up and running with our creches. That hasn't been the case. We are going to fulfil any requirements that are on us as a result of the Part 8, as a result of the planning permission, which requires us to provide the creche where there's 75 units or more. So we'll make good on that, and I suppose the motion seeks to put additional blocks in the way to us doing that. My view is that we need to make delivery of housing our number one priority and take as many blockages out of the way as possible. This puts another blockade in the way. It puts us in a very difficult position if we're out there, as one of the speakers mentioned, in terms of a commercial agreement or otherwise with a creche operator, and we have it hanging over our head that we have a certain date where the units are going to become available for occupation, and we haven't agreed, we haven't come to a contractual agreement with a creche operator. That puts us in a very, very difficult position, and I would strongly, strongly urge you that this creates an unnecessary and unwarranted blockage to the delivery of Part 8 social homes across the county.
Okay, we'll go back now to Councillor Boland, and I'd just like to refer to the phrase the developer. It's been made very clear the developer is us. It's Fingal County Council. It's not some strange developer, it's us. Anyway, back to Councillor Boland.
Thank you very much, and I'd just like to thank those that did support the motion on this, and also just the discussion that came about as a result of this. And I understand that there has been a lot of discussion about the private developers here in this, but as was said by one of my councillors here, the need is to get our Part 8 housing right, and I suppose the reason I brought this forward was that this would totally secure that as a potential. I do also accept that there could be unintended consequences as a result of this, but I do feel that a motion like this does put pressure on us to make sure we get it right. It does put pressure on us to make sure that we can bring forward these things and make sure that these happen. There's plenty of occasions where a not-for-profit could move into to these estates and staff the creches and stuff. It doesn't always have to be a private operator. It doesn't always have to be that way, and I think we need to push forward, as my councillor colleague Corinne Johnson said, the need for more public providers here with this that may not be for profit. But I suppose the biggest thing about bringing this to the floor is that it has started a greater debate on this issue, and whether this motion does get passed or not, what it does do is it again brings this conversation to the fore, and I think no matter how this ends up, we will be discussing this further and into the future, because it is something we need to protect, which is our child care facilities here in Fingal. Thank you.
Okay, right.
Could be developed into two
Do you want to speak to it? Or? Chief Executive is telling me here that this report, she's claiming that it applies to all Part 8s. Is that correct? Well, that's what it says. Yeah, it says all Part 8s, like even less than 75, as it's worded. Is that correct? Am I reading it right? Right, okay, I don't know, I have a suggestion, it's up to them. The proposer of the motion, like if he stopped the motion, the wording at secured, it would deal with the management's problem. Other than that, you leave it as it is and go for it. So that the Chief Executive takes into consideration all Part 8 housing developments where a creche or childcare facility is proposed. It shall be a condition of the Planning Commission that the developer must ensure the facility is fully operational and a qualified operator is secured. Full stop. That deals with the timing issue, but it's up to you, Councillor Mark Boland, if you want to include all the wording as you have the motion.
I would take on board what you just said, Mayor, there. I do think that bringing it to that point, and this is a conversation that needs to be brought forward an awful lot, so I would make that change. If that's agreeable.
Need an amended motion. Yeah, so someone proposed the amendment proposed by Councillor Mark Boland, yes. Seconded by Councillor John Walsh. And now we need the amendment, which is, I don't know if the management can help here, it's just the motion and it stops at secured. And we need to make sure that Councillor Boland is happy with that. It's accurate. Can management do that first? And put it up on the screen, please. Are you okay with that?
Yes,
Yeah, they're indicating that they're happy with it, but I'll ask them to confirm that, or somebody. Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose in our view, the amended motion really just reinforces what will already be in place within the planning permission.
Boland, are you happy with that wording there? Do you want to propose it? Proposed by Councillor Boland, seconded by John Walsh. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. And the meeting's over. Thank you very much.